A warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the majority leader to briefly make welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to welcome the visiting students from Embakasi Girls High School. This is a school, if I'm not wrong, it should be somewhere in Embakasi West, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Speaker, or East. I welcome them to this institution. Mr. Speaker, young students always get an opportunity to visit with us on many afternoons and get to learn about the deliberations and how this house transacts its business. It's just 2:30, a few minutes past. This house is more fuller, slightly later in the afternoon. So they shouldn't live with the impression, Mr. Speaker, that maybe this is how empty Parliament normally is. I think our colleagues from the minority side had a parliamentary group meeting, of which they are yet to conclude. You would understand the kind of challenges they are facing on the minority side. So no, you are in the majority side, Senator Fatuma. You are no longer with the minority side. But otherwise, I welcome the students. I hope they get a full understanding of how Parliament works. For those of you that aspire maybe to one day be members of Parliament or be leaders in the various industries, this is a place to begin. Take your time, learn. I wish you well in your studies. Be diligent, be disciplined, and above all, dream big and never be limited in your dreams. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I will allow Senator Gloria just 1 minute to make a brief welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to welcome these very youthful leaders of tomorrow into the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I just want to urge them that as you're in school and you're focusing on the academics, that you should also not shy away from drama and from public speaking and from all the co-curriculum activities that can actually help you be able to express yourself. Because in this house at the Senate, as you can see, it is a matter of expressing yourself. So as much as you're focusing on the academic part, also focus on the co-curriculum, because most of these leaders you see here have been built by the co-curriculum. And welcome to the Senate of Kenya.
Clerk, next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, the 30th of May, 2023. Number 1, reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2022 of the following. 1, Busia County Assembly Revolving Fund, Busia County Revenue Fund, Busia Water and Services Company Limited, Busia County Cooperative Enterprises Development Fund, Bungoma County Assembly Employee Car Loan and Scheme, Receiver of Revenue, Revenue Statements for the County Government of Bungoma, County Revenue Fund, Government of Bungoma, Zoia Water Services Company Limited, Bungoma County Persons with Disabilities Empowerment Fund, 11 Bungoma County Disaster Management and Emergency Fund, Kapenguria Water and Sewerage Company, Municipality of Kapenguria, West Pokot County Assembly Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, County Executive of Kiambu, County Assembly of Kiambu, Thika Water and Sewerage Company Limited, Ololeza Water and Sewerage Company Limited, Kajiado County Youth and Women Enterprise Fund, Olkejuado Water and Sewerage Company, County Assembly of Nakuru, Car Loan and Grants Mortgage Scheme Fund, Nakuru County Government Staff Car Loan Scheme Fund, Naivasha Water and Sewerage Company, Naivasha Water and Sanitation Company Limited, the County Executive of Nairobi City, County Assembly of Nairobi City, Nairobi City County Assembly Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, County Revenue Fund, County Government of Nairobi City County Alcoholic Drinks Control and Licensing Board, Receiver of Revenue County Government of Machakos, Mavoko Water and Sewerage Company Limited, Municipal Council of Machakos Water and Sewerage Company Limited, Kathiani Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Mwala Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Makueni County Fruit Development and Marketing Authority, Boni Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Kibwezi Makindu Water and Sanitation Company Limited. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay. Thank you.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give notice of the following motion, that aware that the Senate of Kenya is established under Article 93 of the Constitution, and its main role, as set out at Article 96, is to represent, serve, and protect the interest of counties and their governments. Further aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between national and county levels of government, and the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and the county governments as means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public, acknowledging the success made during the sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi, held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in September 2018 and 2019 respectively, further acknowledging the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises of Parliament buildings, Nairobi, during the term of the 13th Parliament, and the subsequent resolution of the Senate made on 8th of March 2023 to hold plenary committee sittings in the counties for 1 week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during the election year, with the objective to, 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate and Parliament in general. 2, highlight the existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process. 3, develop and strengthen partnerships at the county level of government. And 4, provide an opportunity to members and staff of the county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Turkana County from the 25th to the 29th of September 2023.
Next order.
I will be away, so you'll do the motion.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, the Honorable Chirangei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether I will read concurrently and then members can contribute.
Just read
The three of them.
three requests.
Okay, stand guided, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Kinyua, you know there's a difference between the floor here and the lounge out there. Kindly reminding you.
You know, Mr. Speaker is our employer. It is good you are the one reprimanding him. Request for statement on private employment agencies in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the private employment agencies in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the statement, the committee should, 1, outline the requirements that a private employment agency must fulfill before it is officially registered and granted approval to operate in Kenya. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, provide a list of private employment agencies currently operating in the country, stating the registration status of each company. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, shed the light on the claims by the National Employment Authority Integrated Management System, NAIMS, that a number of private employment agencies are operating with expired license. Number 4, disclose the total number of Kenyans who have secured employment abroad through private employment agencies, indicating the agencies involved in this placement. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on this statement, articulate any measures that the National Employment Authority, or NEA, has undertaken to combat the rising cases of Kenyans being exploited by the private employment agencies in securing jobs abroad or overseas. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, request for statement on plans to install device management system, DMS, as spyware on phones. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Information, Communication, and Technology on plans by the Communication Authority of Kenya, CAK, to install device management system, DMS, as spyware on our phones. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the rationale for the installation of DMS on phones, noting that it is likely to compromise the security of phone users' data and to infringe on people's privacy. Number 2, state why the Communication Authority of Kenya, CAK, could not engage telecommunication companies to create an equipment identification register known as EIR on mobile gadgets, including or instead of installing the DMS, that is Device Management System, since all required phone users' data is available. Mr. Speaker, sir, number 3, indicate the measures to put in place to curb the misuse of DMS owing to its ability to access private data, including call records, messages, location, and mobile financial transactions. And Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, state the role of an anti-counterfeit authority in complementing communications authority fight against cloning of international mobile equipment identification, or formerly known as EMI. Mr. Speaker, that's the second statement. Finally, my final statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, request for statement on the plan relaunch of Strategic Food Reserve, or known as SFR. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the planned relaunch of Strategic Food Reserve 3 years after it's closed its operations. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, provide a timeline for the operationalization of Strategic Food Reserve, stating when the National Treasury will release Kenyan shillings 15 billion needed to revive the program, and further state the types of food commodities to be included in this program. Speaker, sir, number 2, provide a list of all strategic food reserves stores to be reopened, indicating plans in place even to have the stores close to farmers for easy accessibility and address congestion in the said stores, as was the case in the past. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, clarify whether the Strategic Food Reserve will import food commodities for their reserves, or what we call Strategic Food Reserve, or if there are measures in place to help Kenyan farmers produce sufficient food locally to stock our stores and ensure there is food security. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Kenywa.
Asante Bwana Spika. Nataka kuunga mkono taarifa ambayo imeletwa na Senator Cherargei, Bwana Spika, kuhusu haya mashirika ambayo yanajihusisha na kuajiri wananchi. Bwana Spika, Bwana Spika, haya mashirika yanapaswa yapigwe msasa na yaangaliwe kwa kindani, kwa sababu Mashirika mengine Bwana Spika yamekuwa yakijihusisha kuwapora, kuwaibia na kuwalaghai wananchi wa Kenya Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo serikali inapaswa ishughulikie hili jambo, kwa sababu wananchi wengi wamekuwa wakigandamizwa na haya mashirika, kwa sababu ndio katika nchi yetu ya Kenya watu wengi wanatafuta ajira. Mashirika haya yanachukua hilo jukumu, kwa sababu wanajua watu wengi wanatafuta ile ajira, wanaitisha hongo, wanaitisha hela. Na jambo la kuvunja moyo Spika zaidi ni kwamba haya mashirika hayawatafutii wale wa Kenya baada ya wao kujitolea mhanga kupatia zile mpaka pesa, lakini unapata Bwana Spika wanabaki kuwalaghai Bwana Spika. Ni vizuri Bwana Spika haya mashirika ambayo yanajihusisha na hayo mambo yakuwa yameangaziwa Bwana Spika, ndiposa wa Kenya waweze kuwa na imani na hayo mashirika Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu Bwana Spika tumeona wananchi wa Kenya wakipata tabu, maafa, kuchapwa na Bwana Spika, hata wengine wanapaswa wanajisiwa kwa sababu wamechukuliwa na haya mashirika wakapelekwa katika nchi za ugenini Bwana Spika. Alafu unapata Bwana Spika wanabaki wako katika mikono ya hawa wakora. Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, serikali iliangazia hili jambo. Nataka kumpongeza Senator Cherargei kwa kuwa katika mstari wa mbele kwa kushughulikia hii mambo, na yeye anajua yeye ni mwanaharakati wa chama cha UDA na anazingatia watu walio chini, na yeye amekuwa katika mstari wa mbele. Bwana Spika, nashukuru na nasema asante kwa Mheshimiwa Senator Cherargei.
Senator Enoch.
I thank you, the Speaker, for this opportunity to also make a contribution to a statement that's raised by Senator Cherargei, especially the last statement on the strategic food reserve. The Speaker, Senator Cherargei would benefit from this if he just cared to listen. The Speaker, the matter of strategic food reserve is a basic but very important matter for this country and for any nation. Lack of food, Mr. Speaker, to a big population of any country is in itself a threat to national security. I have taken note of the contents of the statement, especially in reference to the closure of the reserve 3 years ago. A country cannot operate without a food reserve, because that is almost inviting anarchy into a country. The Speaker, on the last point of his statement, I would want to ask the committee to which the statement will be taken to push forward the agenda of empowering local farmers to produce enough for local consumption and have a surplus for the reserve and even more for export. So the Speaker, once that statement reaches the committee where I sit, we shall do justice to the committee, because I can see my able chair is here and smiling because he knows that we will do justice to the statement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to support the statement by the Senator for Nandi. I know that's where they produce a lot of maize, and I think he's also arguing for his farmers, and I think I applaud him. Honorable Speaker, this country has been experiencing a lot of food shortage and security, problems on this because of drought, and therefore we need to have a serious food reserve. You see, in the other world, in the Europe and America, all those places, there are 9 months of ice covering the whole land, but they have never gone hungry. Unfortunately, 3 months or 3 or 4 months of drought in Kenya, Kenyans go hungry, and every time we see in the public media that areas like Turkana, northern Kenya, most of it, I've always been told people are dying because of hunger. So we think this is a very necessary statement, and I wish to support the statement. Besides that, the one for domestic workers in Kenya, from Kenya and going to other places, especially the Arab world, Kenya is really mishandled, and our people seeking domestic work in Kenya and other parts of the world, especially in the Middle East, are really experiencing lots of problems. And I think there's a lot of unconnected movement of people moving from place to place. These people who normally take domestic workers to the Middle East actually are not monitored. They are not registered, most of them. And we have lost many, many Kenyans who are domestic workers. And therefore, I think a very strict measure should be put in place. And I request the Committee of Labor to take a serious action so that we can curtail this business of taking people like slaves into other world in the Middle East. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the statement by Senator Cherargei about the agents that take our people outside the country. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very timely statement, and I would pray that the committee that this statement is taken to will also go further and check on the way these girls are taken from here, and if they can also be trained on how to go and stay there, because most of them, once they arrive there, their passports are taken away, their mobile phones are taken away, and so they have no communication with anyone. And even when they find that the terms and the conditions of the work is not as they had been told, there is nothing they can do about coming back because they have no communication, they have no passports. And so, Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I support this statement by Cherargei.
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the statement by the one and only Senator for Nandi on labor migration. Mr. Speaker, Kenya has a lot of potential to make a lot of money from exporting labor, but because of this, the sector is not well regularized. That is why we have all the problems that arise when our young people go there. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that a country like Philippines get remittances of about $13.4 billion through remittances, and Kenya can do better. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this statement, and I want to say that when it is come to our committee, we are going to do justice to it so that we can create opportunities for our young people. Thank you.
Senator Mazayo.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kwanza nataka kumpatia kongole ndugu yangu kwa kuleta hii taarifa wakati huu ambao unafaa. Bwana Spika, unaelewa kwamba watoto wetu wengi wanakwenda katika kutafuta mapato katika nchi za ughaibuni. Huwa mara nyingi wakiondoka hapa, wanaondoka ikiwa tunajua anwani zao, tunajua simu zao za mkono, lakini mara tu wanapofika kule huwa ni shida sana kuwafikia. Tumekuwa na vifo wakifanya kazi katika utendakazi wao, wamekuwa wakipatwa na saa nyingine na kupoteza maisha. Bwana Spika, ni lazima, na amefanya jambo jema sana Senator wa Nandi, mchapa kazi, kwa kusema kwa kuandika taarifa yake kwamba ni lazima yale makampuni ambao yako hapa yanachukua watoto wetu yakiwapeleka kule kwenda kufanya kazi, ajibike kuona kwamba wale watu wetu kule wanakokwenda wanakujua, na wakati wote shida ikitokea tunaweza kwenda tukawauliza watoto wetu mliwachukua mkawapeleka mahali fulani, sasa wamesema ya kwamba kuna shida, wanatakana warudi. Bwana Spika, utaona ya kwamba kuna upungufu wa kuweza kujua watoto wetu wanaotoka hapa kwenda nchi za Uarabuni kwenda kufanya kazi, wakifika kule wanafanya kazi wapi. Manake wengine, hata hivi juzi nikiwa nyumbani wiki hii, kuna mtoto aliondoka kwenda kufanya kazi huko nchi za ughaibuni, na hatimaye kuanzia alipoondoka sasa ni karibu miezi 8 hajapiga simu nyumbani, na ni mtoto wa kike. Hatujui sasa kama yuko sawa kule aliko ama hayuko sawa. Bwana Spika, ni muhimu kwa kamati hii yetu ambayo itachukua, mimi nikiwa mmoja wapo katika hii kamati, lakini namuona chairman wangu yuko pale, mwenyekiti. Ni muhimu kwamba swala hili liajibike kisawasawa, na hata ikiwa itawezekana, Bwana Spika, mpatie ruksa kamati hii iweze kuambatana na hata aliyeleta hii statement hapa, ili kuangalia maswala kwa kina. Kwa nini watoto wetu wakienda kule wanapata tabu, na ni kwa nini watu wakienda nchi za Uarabuni wanapata tabu sana kuliko kwenda nchi za Ulaya? Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the statement by Honorable Cherargei. Honorable Speaker, the one on strategic food reserve, I know for a long time, since 1970s until recently when they suspended this SFR, the number of bags of maize that they used to store was about 2 million a year. And they, as soon as maybe the committee does its job and the SFR is revived, they need to increase the number of bags in that strategic reserve, Honorable Speaker, because if they maintain 2 million that they used to maintain 1970s and 80s, our population has risen from 14 million to 50 million. So they need to increase the number. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, they put these particular stores across the country, especially regions where they don't grow maize. And as the statement has said, we also need to add other types of food, maize, beans, and maybe others, green crumbs, so that our people can access easily when there is shortage. You know, there is a lot of clamor for food, that the cost of food has, and the cost of life has risen. It is because we did not put enough bags of maize across the country. And there was a time when we had a lot of harvest, and there's likely to be a good harvest this year. So they need to move with speed so that our people don't have to starve. The prices of food doesn't have to go up because we don't have, we are not strategic in storing our food. Even in the Bible days, Israel, you remember the days of Joseph, you know, they stored food for 7 years. So we, even as a country, we need to be strategic. Well, I'm not saying they store for 7 years because the food can go bad, maybe 3 years. And then every year we put in the same, maybe it's 5 or 6 million. As soon as it reaches 4 years, we sell what is excess in case the country is stable in terms of food security. And then on the one on the Employment Bureau, Honorable Speaker, we know our people have suffered, especially those who have gone to the Arabian country. So these people need to be vetted well. They need to be registered both with the Ministry of Labor and also Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we give conducts so that we monitor regularly. Even our embassies, the embassies or missions abroad, they need to have a database of our people so that in case there are issues, they should even be going for celebrations like the Madaraka Day we have on Thursday. Our missions abroad should be having conduct of our people and even celebrate with them so that we know they're in good health, they're in good position. Honorable Speaker, I support these two statements.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statements of Senator Cherargei. Contribute on the two statements, one on the private employment agencies and the other one on the strategic food reserves. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of strategic food reserves, I think this was established in good faith, and it is an issue that we as Senate and Parliament should try and insist that the executive delivers. Mr. Speaker, before we can have a food reserve to speak of as a nation, we need to begin from the basics. where is the food to be reserved? Do we want that food to come from out, or can it come from Kenya? Mr. Speaker, we need to go back to the basics and discuss how best we can support our farmers to produce enough food for us to have for our current needs and enough for the needs of tomorrow, as well as the needs of other countries where we can make some monies out of. Mr. Speaker, it is unclear how many acreage of land in Kenya are covered with maize, for instance, which is a staple food. It is time we are able to be told that this year we have planted so many hectares of maize, we have planted so many hectares of potatoes, we have planted so many hectares of beans, and this means that we will have adequate food or we will not have adequate food, and we plan for it. Mr. Speaker, we also have a lot of idle land, so that even as we determine whether we have adequate food or not, we should be able to then plan on how we can utilize the resource of idle land to support our farmers to be able to get more food. Mr. Speaker, even as the committee that will look at this issue looks at it, we need to guide that we get our country to be directed to work inwardly first, to give support to our own farmers before they give support to farmers outside, to ensure that we reorganize our agriculture sector in order to create jobs and in order to actually achieve what Senator Cherargei is talking about. Mr. Speaker, on the other agenda of private employment agencies, I think it is an issue of keeping within our standards. Mr. Speaker, the executive and the Ministry of Labor needs to put in place effective measures of monitoring those who are licensed to carry out such jobs as recruiting privately. Mr. Speaker, we should also ensure that NITA has what it takes to train all those who are going to work outside of this country to be able to understand not just the job that they are going to do, but the culture of the people that they are going to work within. Mr. Speaker, if you remove a young girl from Kiambu without giving them any cultural training around the Islamic ways of life and take them to Saudi Arabia and expect that she should just gel in because it is a job, we are actually setting them up for failure. So I think the ministry and those in charge of the employment need to do their job. I think they're sleeping on the job. That's why we are sending out people who are unprepared and having them come back in coffins because they were not prepared for where they are going. Mr. Speaker, we have many young people who are not employed, and any opportunity for employment should be nurtured. So we should not be blocking opportunities for employment, but we should be scrutinizing that space to ensure that we have a transition that enables us to send as many of our young people to whichever country where they can actually earn some living and support their families. So this is about strengthening our investigative and our standards departments to ensure that those standards are applied without fear, without favor, and that no agency is able to get away with substandard ways of implementing the Constitution and the laws that apply on employment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Tabitha. Senator Tabitha Mutinda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement by Senator Cherargei in regards to the issue of employment agents. And I want to state that personally, I had tabled also to NITA requiring the curriculum that they offer, that these agencies do offer. And I'm happy that Senator Cherargei has been able to pick out that the institutions' licenses have expired, and so these people should not be in operation. I do confirm last week that the NITA director did appear and had tabled a report of all these agencies. Now, which further raises an eyebrow, Mr. Speaker, in regards to how an institution will table before the Senate agencies whose licenses have expired, which further raises eyebrows on how these institutions are working. And this is a matter because further it touches to our Kenyans who are in different diasporas of this country. Knowing the income in terms of the dollar value that they bring to this country, this is a matter that should be much looked at. Either we have cartels in the name of agents whose licenses have expired, and yet the body that is supposed to oversight them, that is NITA, have gone further to assume that this committee needs a deeper report through, I think, the Committee of Labor. And Mr. Speaker, we need at this time to look at the closure on the issue of laborers out there. I'm looking forward, let me state in this House, to bring in the Immigrants Bill, which is at the draft level, whereby this House will be able to conclusively, focusedly, futuristic, be able to sort out the issue of our brothers and sisters who are out there in the diaspora, trying to make ends meet, and institutions that are supposed to protect them do not take the necessary and the weight that it deserves for our Kenyans. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask you and urge you that the committee that should be assigned to discuss on this, especially these agents, we need a quick feedback on either there are cartels in this country that are continuing to endanger the lives of our Kenyans, or what really are they? And let NITA know, and I want this to go to record, Mr. Speaker, when we summon the Director General to appear, he should not send his subordinates to appear, but he himself should appear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order, clerk. Now, honorable senators, I shall proceed to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper pursuant to Standing Order 45-2. And instead, we will move to prosecute Order 12 in today's order paper. And thereafter, I will guide you accordingly. So, clerk, kindly proceed to call order number 12.
Order number 12, motion, approval of sittings of the Senate to be held in Turkana County.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to move the following motion. That aware that the Senate of Kenya is established under Article 93 of the Constitution, and that its main role, as set out in Article 96, is to represent, serve, and protect the interests of the counties and their governments, and further aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, and the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and to the general public, and acknowledging, Mr. Speaker, that the successes made during the sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi, which were held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in September 2018 and in September 2019, respectively, further acknowledging that the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises in Parliament buildings, Nairobi, during the term of the 13th Parliament, and the subsequent resolution of the Senate met on the 8th of March 2023 to hold the plenary and committee sittings in the counties for 1 week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during an election year with the objective of, one, to promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate and Parliament in general, and two, highlight existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process, and three, to develop and strengthen partnerships at the county level of government, and four, provide an opportunity to members and staff of the county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary staff. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Turkana County from the 25th to the 29th of the month of September 2023. Mr. Speaker, as I move this motion, actually, as read, it justifies all that I would have said. The only thing I would like to add, Mr. Speaker, is that once upon a time, there was a place in the United States of America called the Wild West. It was the semi-arid, arid part of the US that had what was thought to be of no value. So the majority of the settlers, when they came in the US, they settled in the lower parts of America on the, Mr. Speaker, eastern coastline for good reason. The climate was right, the vegetation was good, it was beautiful, it was littered with quite a number of lakes. You know the beauty of the US. However, somebody went to California and discovered gold. And then there was a gold rush to California. Today, Mr. Speaker, California state is the fifth largest economy in the world. The economy of California state is the fifth largest economy in the world. Why? Because of that discovery. I would love that Senate goes to the Turkana. God was not a fool to make the people of Turkana to live for so many years under so much suffering, but still be there, and then subsequently open our eyes that, wait a minute, there's some gold here called oil. I believe, despite the challenges the Tulo company is going through, Mr. Speaker, that oil is going to become economically viable. And I can assure all the doctors who I see scrambling in Nairobi here, they all be practicing medicine in Turkana, because all the Kenyans who are in the bracket of who is who will be living in Turkana to enjoy part of that wealth. So let us, as leaders of this country, not wait until Turkana has been made rich because of the oil before we go there. Let's go there to carry the imagination of the country with us. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I move and I request the nominated senator from Nairobi, born in Ukambani, lives in Nairobi, married in Embu, mother of my beloved little small girl, who calls me uncle, and husband to the Senator Tabitha
Senator Boni.
Mutinda.
Senator Boni.
Yes.
You are not in the village. This is the plenary. You're on the floor of the most honorable place you can be. You can imagine. Those introductions are supposed to be done when you're introducing her to your clan. Not when you're introducing her for purposes of seconding your motion. Can we proceed, Senator Tabitha? I caution you, Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion by the government whip. I do second and state, Mr. Speaker, that it would have been my wish in this House that our colleague, none other than Senator Lomenen, would have been in this House. It is a very big privilege from where I sit to have an opportunity to visit Turkana County. Allow me to state, Mr. Speaker, as a support and second that we felt as leaders that it's the high time that we do it differently, and do it differently by coming out of the city and going to Mashinani and being able to interact with the people of Turkana, be able to see the resources that are in place. It is through this that we actually embrace devolution, we actually embrace the county issues that we're keeping on embracing each and every time. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question. That aware that the Senate of Kenya is established under Article 93 of the Constitution, and its main role as set out at Article 96 is to represent, serve, and protect the interests of the counties and their governments. Further, aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, and the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and the county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public, acknowledging that the successes made during the sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in September 2018 and in September 2019 respectively. Further, acknowledging the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises in Parliament buildings, Nairobi, during the time of the 13th Parliament, and the subsequent resolution of the Senate made on 8th March 2023 to hold plenary and committee sittings in the counties for a one-week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during an election year, with the objective to 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate and Parliament in general. 2, highlight existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative processes. 3, develop and strengthen partnerships at the county level of government. And 4th, provide an opportunity to members and staff of the county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Turkana County from the 25th to the 29th September 2023. Honorable members, the floor is now open, and whoever is willing to make his contribution, kindly you can key in so that I can pick your name from my dashboard. I'm seeing members who are not in the House and yet their names appearing here. I thought we discussed these members. The Honorable Mazayo Stewart.
I'm in the House. Mr. Speaker, asante sana Bwana Speaker. Bwana Speaker, kwanza nataka kusema kwamba ni hoja nzuri sana. Ni hoja nzuri kwa sababu Bwana Speaker, mahala kama Turkana, mimi nataka kusema ukweli ya kwamba sijaweza kufika, na nitapata nafasi ya kuweza kuonana na ndugu zetu wa Turkana. Litakuwa jambo zuri zaidi kuwa tutakwenda ama tutakuwa na kikao, ama ili bunge letu la Senate litakuwa na kikao huko Turkana. Bwana Spika, tukiangalia katika miaka karibu 50, nchi inayoitwa Dubai ilikuwa ni jangwa. Ilikuwa ni jangwa kabisa. Hakukuwa na rasilimali yoyote kule. Ama ilikuwa haijawahi kuonekana. Lakini Bwana Spika, kwa mara ya kwanza ilipopatikana miaka 50 iliyokwisha, ukifika kule hivi sasa si jangwa tena. Vile vile tunasema kwamba nchi yetu hii ya Kenya, Turkana ni kwale ambako kampuni ya Tulo imeweza kupata kuona ya kwamba kunayo mafuta ya maana sana katika ulimwengu. Na ni jambo zuri ikiwa tutakwenda kule, na tuna hakika hata ikiwa sisi wengine tutakuwa hatuko, na hakika pengine katika hili bunge watakaobaki nikina ndugu yangu mdogo, pengine wakati huo atakuwa amefika katika miaka ya kuhesabu, lakini ni kwamba Kenya itabadilika wakati sisi tutaanza kutoa hayo mafuta na kuyapeleka na kuyauza na kuweza kupata pesa. Bwana Spika, ni jambo zuri pia vile vile kuona kwamba sisi tutaongeza uhusiano zaidi. Kuna na hakika kuna watu wengine ambao wameishi Turkana mpaka hivi sasa hawajawahi pengine kukutana na maseneta wengine kutoka kaunti zingine. Itakuwa nafasi nzuri kuwa na uhusiano mwema na watu wa kule, kuweza kukaa nao na kuongea na kuangalia wao waone taratibu za Senate zinaendelea namna gani, ili kuweza kujifundisha. Hata wakimchagua seneta wao ndugu yangu Lomanen hayuko leo, lakini akiwa yeye kama seneta wa kule Turkana, tunajua yeye ni mshupavu na watu wake walimchagua aje hapa ili aweze kuwatetea haki zao. Watu wa Turkana wataweza kujua maana ya kuwa ndani ya Senate, na seneta kufanya kazi yake na uwezo wake uko namna gani wakati tukiwa tuko kule, na tutaweza kupata nafasi nzuri pia ya kuweza kuwaeleza hususan kazi za Senate ni nini, ili waweze kuelewa. Nashukuru sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa muda huu.
Senator Cheranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is a straightforward matter, motion, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to laud the decision of Senate Business Committee and the decision of this House that we need to devolve. The Senate as a House is the epitome of devolution. People, the essence of devolution and creation and functionality, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to ensure that people understand the role of the Senate. There are so many misinformation about what Senate should do, whether they should have money to do development, what Article 96 is all about. And I think this is the opportunity for the great people of Turkana, Mr. Speaker, sir, to have opportunity to interact with the Senate. I remember in our last session, we were able to go to Wasingishu. And Mr. Speaker, I'm requesting the SPC to try and tailor-made the agenda that is biased towards what is affecting the people of Turkana. For example, we can work much on blue economy, challenges of food, drought, things that are based or affect the great people of Turkana than what is affecting the people in Nairobi. I don't expect the Senate to go and discuss about traffic jams in Turkana. We should be discussing something else like accessibility to water, challenges. I don't expect to go and discuss about glab noises, Mr. Speaker, or disco matangas or what have you, Mr. Speaker. We should be biased talking about fishing, issues of blue economy, and among others. Mr. Speaker, when you look under Article 126 of the Constitution of Kenya, it talks allocation of sittings of Parliament. And for the benefit of Kenyans and the great people of Turkana who are watching and across 47 county governments, when you look under Article 126(1), a sitting of either house may be held at any place within Kenya and may commence at any time that the House appoints. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important that these are some of the fruits of this Constitution. We can sit in Turkana, we can sit in Kilifi, we can sit in Homa Bay, we can sit, Mr. Speaker, and the tradition of parliament, we can even sit in times of war. Mr. Speaker, I was shocked the other day when a committee, I don't want to say which committee, it was going to another county. And somebody from NIS called the chairperson of that committee and told them the town is not safe. So I was wondering that parliament can even sit in terms of war. So I was wondering why would the NSIS and some security apparatus be warning a parliamentary committee? Even there are situations where a parliament committee from the US House of Congress has visited Iraq, even when bombings and everything was happening. And even we have seen heads of states and parliament visiting Ukraine because of Ukraine-Russian war, Mr. Speaker. So I think it behooves all of us that this one, Turkana, I would have wished my brother Senator Lomenen to be on the floor of the House so that we can learn even how we need to practice greetings of how to greet the great people of Turkana, because there is a way we should also go, Mr. Speaker, and learn their culture. You know, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion is that sometimes we look down or we refrain from other people's behavior. It is how they are brought up, what they believe in. Some people have different, what we call biasness towards other, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we need to work towards that. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we hope to have as many committees sitting there. I hope all members will be available. I'm happy that the Senate Minority Leader has never been in Turkana, but I hope he has sampled other things from Turkana County, Mr. Speaker, which I don't want to mention on the floor of the House because he's my personal friend, Mr. Speaker. So, including food or any other, Mr. Speaker. So, I don't know why Senator Kalwale is laughing, Mr. Speaker, yet he's not a friend to Senate Minority Leader. So, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, we are going to Turkana and we say, Naata, Maata, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Senator Mogene.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to be on record as fully and wholeheartedly supporting the motion on the floor that recommends that the sittings of the Senate be held in the county of Turkana. First, Mr. Speaker, I hope while in Turkana we'll be able to tell the people of Turkana County how much we love them as Senate. In the last session, Mr. Speaker, Senator Cherage would confirm that during the revenue sharing discussions, Turkana County was meant to lose over 1 billion shillings. And if it was not for the intervention and the fact that the Senate was able to stand firm, they would have lost over 1 billion shillings. So it's a county that is dear to us as senators, and really, if we want to see the fruits of devolution, the place to go is Turkana. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it's good that we chose the county of Turkana because it's a very strategic county for our country, Kenya. So, Speaker, where I come from in Nyamira, we have no land to give to investors to build big industries. But Turkana has got land. Yeah, I'm told it has the largest underground fresh water in Kenya. Look at that potential. It has got oil, which we don't have in Nyamira, as we only have tea and bananas. But these guys have resources that can transform the economy of the country. So the choice, I must commend the business, the House Business Committee for picking this very strategic county, and I hope we'll have a very exciting experience. So, Speaker, I want to agree with Senator Cherage that this should also give us an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to go and do some audit on what the money that we send counties has done for devolution. This gives us an opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Let's go and see if the money that we have sent to Turkana has been able to give water to the people of Turkana. Let us look at the balls. The report that we have received, Mr. Speaker, indicating that balls have been sunk for the people of Turkana. This is a golden opportunity for us to go to the ground and we see whether what is on paper is really the position on the ground. Let's do our hospitals in Turkana. we see whether health, which is a devolved function, and there's a big debate now whether health functions should remain functions of counties or they should revert back to national government. Let's see what devolution has done in terms of giving the people of Turkana access to health care. And Mr. Speaker, we need to debate the issue of health care seriously. You know, senior citizens of this country who have served us diligently and have retired are still being forced to pay for NHIF, Mr. Speaker. In other countries, Mr. Speaker, it's people like Senator Halwale who are energetic and working, who should be paying for the senior citizens to access health care. They get free health cards, Mr. Speaker. And I want to be treated that way, Mr. Speaker. When I retire from this house, I want to serve this country in comfort, that when I retire, I will not trouble myself where to get money for high blood pressure or diabetes. And you know, we have an opportunity as leaders here to take care of our parents, our aging grandparents, Mr. Speaker. So when we visit counties, let's hear from counties like Turkana, what plans they have in place to take care for the health of the people who reside in those counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take a lot of time. I fully support this motion. I hope I will hear something about tapping livestock business. There are a lot of cows in Turkana. I mean, why, Mr. Speaker, why can't Turkana be exporting beef to Middle East? Yeah, we need to hear from the county of Turkana. What vision do they have to tap into that opportunity of livestock business? Because that land mass is big. People have about here. It's not a big deal to have more than 200 heads of cattle in Turkana. So we want them to tap that opportunity, export the livestock to the Middle East and other countries, so that we can transform the lives of our people. We should not take it like it's business as usual, that there are still Kenyans who are living on less than $2. We should not take it as business as usual. That's something that should trouble us, Mr. Speaker. And as leaders, we need to see what interventions we can put in place. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Senator Mandago.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the motion of having the Senate sitting in Turkana County. And Mr. Speaker, having benefited myself from the Senate Mashinani sitting, I would say this is a very, very important session for the Senate, as one of the things the Senate Mashinani has done, Mr. Speaker, is to actually build capacity in our counties, particularly on devolved function, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the aspect of accountability, Mr. Speaker, where we have the Senate Public Accounts Committee sitting in that county, Mr. Speaker, it affords the Senate Public Accounts Committee the opportunity not just to interrogate the books of accounts of that county and put the governor to task, Mr. Speaker, but it also gives opportunity to the Public Accounts Committee to actually meet the relevant heads of departments who are actually involved in the day-to-day running of the departments, Mr. Speaker, and are also involved in the preparation of responses for audit queries. And therefore, clarifications that are sought will be much more clearer, and even officers will then learn that the responsibility does not just lie with the governor in terms of accounting for the public resources of that county, but it lies entirely on the county government of that county. So, Mr. Speaker, that is an opportunity I would wish many counties can get a chance to host Senate Mashinani and benefit from this experience. Mr. Speaker, Turkana County is a very special county. It is the cradle of mankind. And as you are aware, Mr. Speaker, Turkana County hosts an annual festival called Tobonglore. I hope there will be a coincidence that when we shall have our Senate Mashinani, that festival will also be there, so that we can also explore the tourism potential of those counties. Mr. Speaker, it will be an opportunity also for Senate to publicize Turkana County as a county that is ready for investment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the tourism sector, Turkana County hosts Lake Turkana,
one of the biggest freshwater lakes we have in the world, and also the lake with the largest shoreline of 70 kilometers, Mr. Speaker, and it is white beach sand. I know Senator Chimera and the Senator for Kwale would be worried that the number of tourists flocking to Diani might reduce if they discover that there is a similar facility in Turkana. But this is how Kenyans and others can get opportunity to discover what is in their country. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the Senate Mashinani, and I hope, Mr. Speaker, this can be met at least 2 sessions in a year so that as many counties as possible can get the opportunity to participate in this Senate Mashinani. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Senator Obura. Senator Obura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion because first, it is important that the presence of the Senate is felt. Kenyans should know what the Senate does, and a Senate Mashinani is one of the ways we can come closer to the people and they know what we are doing. Mr. Speaker, sir, the county which has been proposed for Senate Mashinani is a very, very important county, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in my position where I used to work before I became a member of parliament, I was in the Ministry of Planning, and I used to be in charge of Turkana, a program in Turkana funded by the Norwegian government. And they were doing almost what the government is supposed to do in Turkana, which is provision of health care, water, agriculture, livestock, and fisheries, and everything else, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is a county which was marginalized right from the colonial times. Mr. Speaker, those counties used to be classified as NFD, which was the Northern Frontier District, where people were not supposed to go unless you were given a permission by the district commissioners. And they were supposed to be preserved, I don't know for what purpose. They were not supposed to be treated strictly as part of Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, after independence again, this marginalization continued because the government then adopted a paper called Sessional Paper Number 10, which talked of investment only in very productive areas, the areas which were giving quick returns in terms of agricultural development, and areas like Turkana were completely ignored, Mr. Speaker. They were ignored in terms of infrastructure, and they were also ignored in terms of provision of a lot of services. Mr. Speaker, sir, it was thought that the areas are not productive because the return per investment of a shilling was much higher than in the other, what was called the more productive areas. Mr. Speaker, what has been discovered now is that these areas are very, very rich in resources. And when we go there as Senate, I think we will realize that these areas are very, very rich in resources. In Turkana, you have plenty of water, both underground water. I understand there is more than a lake underground. And they also have Lake Turkana, which is there and can be exploited. Mr. Speaker, sir, they have a lot of animals, and there is no reason why these animals cannot be turned into an economic activity instead of leaving them to be, to survive there, to overgraze on fragile land, and the land which is very fertile, which can also be used for irrigation. We used to do irrigation in a place called Katilu irrigation scheme, and it was very productive. So the land in Turkana, if you can utilize the water which is there and use the land for production, agricultural production, it can feed Kenya. Actually, Turkana can feed Kenya. So they can also have abattoirs there in Turkana, slaughter and sell meat in the Middle East, like my colleague Honorable Mogeni was saying. And we can also, the government of, I know that was not a handshake government, but maybe it was a handshake government between Uhuru and Ruto in 2013. They adopted a policy of using leather and textile as a way of creating employment in the country. And I went with the Minister of Industry, we went around the world, and we found that leather can employ millions of people, actually does employ millions of people. And there is no reason why the animals in northeastern and Turkana particularly can be used to produce, not just to put up a leather industry, but even actually to produce leather products like handbags and shoes and other things. Those industries can be established right there in Turkana and in northeastern, and therefore these regions need not be marginalized. And when we are there, I think you will see what is happening in Turkana, and it is a lot of very good experience for those who are not gone, like my party leader. When you go there, party leader, I can tell you the people are very friendly. And apart from being very friendly, they also have very nice meat, very, very tender, and the goat is very sweet. My party leader, you will eat very, very nice goats there, very generous people, and they have also very rich culture, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I hate to interrupt our senior youth, Senator Oburu Odinga, understanding Order 105 on accuracy of facts. He says there is a party leader who will be visiting to, and making reference to a party leader in this house. I don't think, I have not seen Senator Roba. I don't know whether there is any other party leader. You know he is from, Mr. Speaker, you know he is from parliamentary group meeting, I understand, because party leader was there. Can you clarify, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Proceed, Senator Oburu.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I was just referring to my leader in the House, who is the leader of the minority. And if he doesn't think that is my leader here for our party, I'm sorry, I will teach you how to learn about that. Yes, but Mr. Speaker, sir, let me not be disrupted. Let me just conclude my speech by saying that I support going to Turkana, because I know we shall learn a lot. Turkana has a lot of oil which is yet to be exploited. It has a lot of water resources, and the government needs to invest more to develop the infrastructure so that our country can benefit from those immense resources not only in Turkana, but in those areas where some people think that they are poor, but they are not poor. They are very, very rich counties, and it is only lack of investment which has made them to be marginalized. But I hope that things like the other thing we were discussing here the other day, Mr. Speaker, equalization fund, I was very unhappy to see that areas which don't need those equalization funds were also benefiting from those funds. When areas which were marginalized, like Turkana, are just getting a portion of it. But these are the areas where we need to seriously think of directing equalization so that we can bring them up to speed, because these are areas which have been neglected right from the colonial times, and our independent governments did also not give them the due consideration that they needed, and now it is time that counties like Turkana are brought up so that we can exploit the immense resources that they have, and bring up the people up to speed, and also learn about their very, very rich culture, which should not be left to die. That culture must be built, it must be improved, and we must encourage the Turkana people to continue on the trajectory of development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Esi Okenyure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also want to support this move of holding the Senate sittings in the different counties with priority being given to Turkana. First, this will be a very good opportunity for young people who are aspiring to be senators or beyond senators, that they can actually learn from the best and have a one-on-one interaction with the various senators who will be in those sittings. And these young people will be very lucky. People like us never had such opportunity. And I actually wish this would even go to my county of origin in Kisii, so that people also see the kind of economic activities people down there engaging, like the soapstone cavings and very many other activities that we are engaging in. Mr. Speaker, this will also be an opportunity for the locals to actually see us engage on issues that are mostly affecting them. Mr. Speaker, this will also be an opportunity to boost the various people in those counties in different areas of business, because I know these senators will be promoting people who will be offering different services in Turkana County. And when I actually follow from what previous challenges the Senate incurred when they visited some of those areas, maybe we need to relook on that. There are some of the challenges that locals complained about, and I think this time those should be captured so that people can feel devolution fully. Mr. Speaker, this will also be a chance for us to get to know issues directly, and I hope it will be configured in such a way that we will accommodate issues that concern Turkana people, so that they also hear how fruitful the discussions will be, or what issues we can actually commit as a Senate on picking. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very good and timely move several years after we got devolution. And I'm one of those people who believe that devolution is a very good thing. The other time I visited Ahero Sub-County Hospital mortuary, and I would see that in as much as that hospital does not have fridges to preserve the dead bodies, whatever preservation techniques we're using, still we're ensuring that the bodies are in good condition. So, Mr. Speaker, that shows you several years back, maybe this county would have bodies decomposed. But as a result of the initiatives that have been put in place by the county government, you can see the people in Ahero receive attention anytime they have issues. And those are some of the good bits of devolution that we, as a house, should support and help county governments achieve. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that's a very good initiative. I'm looking forward to visiting Turkana County for the very first time since I was actually born, and also inspire the several young people who follow me from Turkana that you can actually be more than senator as I am. All your dreams are valid. Kenya is a country of all possibilities. Thank you.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion and the sitting in Turkana County. And I'm happy that this is going to one of the northern Kenya counties. Mr. Speaker, I think there is a lot that we can be able to learn from Turkana County that will actually benefit this house and the country at large, because majorly northern counties, people sit in Nairobi and make decisions for them without really understanding the challenges they go through. And Turkana is one of such counties because rarely people go to those areas. Mr. Speaker, Turkana is one of the counties where development has not really taken place, despite even devolution. I know there is a lot of money that they are getting as a result of devolution, but unfortunately the situation is still the same, Mr. Speaker, and I hope this House will be able to look at that and see why there is no major impact, especially as far as the budgetary allocation is concerned. I know there is a lot of insecurity in Turkana, where people are killed every day as a result of cattle rustling with the neighboring counties and also countries, Mr. Speaker, and I think maybe when we visit those areas, we'll be able to understand the reason why the issues of cattle rustling are still happening in Turkana and other northern counties. Mr. Speaker, the issue of petroleum, and I hope some motions that are going to, or maybe statements that will come on the floor of the House that day will be able to address certain issues affecting that particular area. And unfortunately, the senator for the area is not here. But I think issues of insecurity has really affected Turkana County, where development is not really taking place, Mr. Speaker. This has been a challenge to them. I know very well there is a lot of tourism attraction in Turkana County, and especially even the cultural bit, where Turkana County is actually, mothers are making a lot of beads, which they should have even sold to tourism. Again, the culture is very rich, Mr. Speaker, and I think maybe arrangement can be made, especially when the sitting is taking place. We can actually benefit from the traditional dances that Turkana County can actually provide, which, if tourism is happening in that part of the county, should have given Turkana County a lot of money. Issues of petroleum, there is so much expectation, Mr. Speaker, from petroleum, but unfortunately up to now, communities have not seen the benefit that is accruing from petroleum. The animals, I know there are so many senators who have just stood here and said that Turkana County has a lot of animals. It was true then, but unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, many of the animals from northern Kenya are swept by the drought. Majority of people are poor today. And I think it's high time we should be able to really know how to mitigate a drought in those parts of the country. Of course, you've seen a situation where, Mr. Speaker, that people turn to traditional fruits to feed their children and to feed their families. Really, 21st century, that is a very serious situation. And as a country, we must be able to look at it and really address what are the causes and again find a solution for it. Mr. Speaker, Turkana has a lot of underground water, but much intervention and exploration of the same water has not been done, because Turkana has a lot of land, but if the country is serious and also the county is serious, Mr. Speaker, irrigation should have taken place where people can be able to plant food or grow food and plant trees so that they can mitigate the drought situation in those parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, again, I know, having been in this House for quite some time, there are issues of misappropriation and misuse of budgetary allocation, and I hope the relevant committees, when they go on the ground, they should be able to look at that and see how they can actually look at their books and see why the budget allocation has not been utilized properly, and those who are actually behind that are not brought to books. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support, and I hope members will be able to travel on that particular week to be able to really sit in Turkana and see how they can support the communities that will visit. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wafula.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa nafasi hii, kwanza ni kushukuru na waliohusika kuchagua Turkana kama eneo lililoteuliwa kwa Senate kufika huko na kufanya mkutano huko. Kihistoria, maeneo ya Turkana yamekuwa eneo ambalo limetekelezwa, eneo ambalo Wakenya walikuwa wanasikia tu kuhusiana na maisha ama vita dhidi ya wanaoishi katika maeneo hayo. Lakini kwa sasa, kutokana na uamuzi wa bunge, tutakwenda kule mashinani kutana na wananchi, na vile wenzangu wamesema, itakuwa wakati sisi kutia msasa hatua za ugatuzi kwa miaka 10. Fedha ambazo tumekuwa tukipitisha kwenye bunge la Senate ziwe zinakwenda mashinani. Pesa hizi zitaweza kuonekana kama ni maji yalichimbwa, vidimbwi vya maji, iwapo ni barabara, iwapo ni pesa zilitengwa kwa ukulima na mifugo. Tutaweza kujionea kwa macho iwapo hizo pesa zimeafiki malengo ya ugatuzi kule Turkana, ama kuna wachache ambao wamekuwa nazigatua kibinafsi na kufanya miradi ya maendeleo kule Turkana. Vile vile yale ambayo yamekuwa naibuka vita dhidi ya jamii husika kule Turkana na majirani zake, tutaweza kufika kujionea kwa macho na kuwasikiza wenyeji, ili tunaporudi katika mipangilio na ratiba ya bunge, tuweze kusimama kidete na ugatuzi na kuhakikisha kwamba watu wa Turkana na majirani zake wanaishi kwa umoja, kwa upendo, na hivi kwamba Kenya iweze kusonga mbele. Jambo lingine ambalo lazima tutaweza kuangazia ni mipaka yetu na nchi jirani ambayo Turkana inapakana nao. Kwa muda mrefu, jinsi tumeona kwa vyombo vya habari, rais wa nchi jirani ametoa amri kwamba wale waliohusika kwa vifo vya Waganda kule Uganda waweze kusalimishwa katika vyenzo vya sheria kule Uganda, ama Waturkana wafurushwe wote warudi Kenya. Sisi kama jumba la Senate tutakuwa na nafasi ya kuwa kiunganishi ama kipatanishi kati ya idara mbalimbali na nchi mbalimbali kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya ambao wanaishi kule Turkana wasiweze kuumia kwa sababu ya makosa ya watu wachache. Vile vile, jinsi mheshimiwa ndugu mzalendo Mheshimiwa Oburu amesema, sisi kama serikali ya Kenya Kwanza tulikuwa na mkataba na wananchi na tulifanya vikao katika kaunti zote. Tulipokuwa kule Turkana, tuliahidi wa Kenya kwamba unyunyizaji wa mashamba kule Turkana utaweza kuimarishwa ili wawe na mbinu mbadala ya kupata chakula pasipo kuzingatia ama kutegemea mahindi peke yake. Sisi kama kamati ya ukulima tutataka kujua serikali imefanya yapi kuhusiana mpangilio wetu wa kuimarisha ukulima kule Turkana, ufugaji wa mifugo na kuimarisha kipato cha mifugo ili watu wa Turkana watambuliwe kwamba wako Kenya. Ningependa kupendekeza Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba katika maeneo mengine tutakayozuru, kwa mfano juzi tulikuwa na waziri wa nishati na mafuta hapa, na ndugu yetu kutoka Turkana aliuliza maswali ambayo yalikuwa yamemkera, na waziri alipoondoka bado ndugu yetu seneta hakuwa ameridhika. Tutakapokuwa tunazuru maeneo mengine, tutakuwa tunawaalika wale mawaziri ambao wizara zao zinaafiki malengo hasa ya kaunti tunazuru, ili wenyeji wa kaunti hizo wasikize mawaziri hao kutoka mashinani. Iwapo hawaleti majibu yanayostahili, wananchi vile vile wasitusulubishe sisi wa maseneta na viongozi, lakini waweze kujua ni nani ambaye hafanyi kazi ambayo ametumwa ama aliyopewa na serikali. Sasa mimi naunga mkono hatua zetu za kwenda kule, na nikimalizia Mheshimiwa Spika, kumekuwa na donda sugu la walimu kutoka maeneo mbalimbali kufunza maeneo tofauti. Tutakapokuwa kule vile vile tutataka kujua walimu ambao walihama kwenda maeneo mengine na wale walioko wanafiki idadi ya wanafunzi na changamoto, au kuna dosari ya elimu kule Turkana, kwa sababu tukiweka kwenye ramani na mchakato wa manufaa ya elimu, naamini kwamba Turkana inajizatiti, lakini bado haijafika kiwango ambacho kinastahili. Sasa mimi naunga mkono hatua hii na kuomba Wakenya kule Turkana wajitokeze, watazame kwenye vyombo vya habari, wale ambao wataweza kupata nafasi ya mtagusano na sisi, tuweze kupata mwelekeo unaostahili kutokana na nafasi zetu. Mwisho, wengi ambao kama naibu ya wachache Mheshimiwa Mazayo, ambao ni vigogo kihistoria, kisiasa, lakini bado hawajatembea Kenya wajue Kenya inaumia namna gani ama Wakenya wanaumia namna gani. Ni nafasi Wakenya wajue hawa viongozi ambao wanavuma wakiwa baharini, huku mashinani wanajulikana ama wajulikani, ama wanahoja ama hawana hoja, ama wanaelewa Kenya ama hawaelewi Kenya, kwa sababu wengi tumekita mizizi tu kupiga siasa ya kaya bunwasi, lakini maisha ya Mkenya yanayomkera Mkenya kule mashinani bado hawajui. Nashukuru Senate na Speaker haswa kwa kuwapeleka watu mashinani ili wajue kwamba japo tuko Nairobi, kila kitu kinatoka kijijini. Asante Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Senator Hazana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to support the motion by the bullfighter Honorable Boni Halwale. And I strongly support that it's about time state in our country, the lack of food and lack of food reserves. And I mean, it's very shameful because as we said, Turkana County has, Turkana, Samburu and Marsabit counties have this potential to grow crops because these are semi-arid areas. They are not actually arid areas. Mr. Speaker, Turkana County borders three countries, Uganda, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. And given that this is a county that's bordering 3 different nations, there is a lot of potential in opening up the county for cross-border trading and ensuring that there is peace, at least to ensure that proper relations is is accomplished among these countries. Mr. Speaker, I've also heard that there was a discovery of underground water in Turkana, but unfortunately that the water is 7 times more saline than the recommendation by the World Health Organization. Mr. Speaker, I believe the recommendation was it would cost about 50 million monthly to get this water desalinated. And why wouldn't we spend 50 million as a country on electricity if at all we are already raising and taxing everything, including that same electricity cost which has blown out of imaginations. Mr. Speaker, we know that Lake Turkana, the majestic lake of the north, Lake Turkana, which was formerly called Lake Rudolph, or the Jade Sea, has so many national parks around it and in it. We have the Sibiloi National Park. I know many of you might not have known it is in Turkana. We have the South Island National Park and the Central Island, which is also in Turkana. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a county with 3 national parks. How come we are not promoting it for tourism to shift focus from being too much in the coast to at least up north? Because I believe people can swim on that lake and float because it's a salty lake for people like me who can barely not swim. Mr. Speaker, we also know that we have some unique species of animals in Lake Turkana, which my colleagues do not know. We have, the Lake Turkana is a breeding ground for the migrant waterfowl. And we also have several species of snakes in the Cobifora. And it's also a breeding ground for the Nile crocodile. So the Nile crocodile breeds in Lake Turkana, not the Nile River. Mr. Speaker, I will be very proud to take part in these plenaries in Turkana. And I would also like to request that
these plenaries be held in counties that are marginalized, counties that are far away from the city, and counties that consider themselves CCC or Kenya. We can pick a few counties in the coast and several in the north. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika. Kuanzia mwanzo nataka kusema naunga mkono mswada huu. Na Bwana Spika, kulingana na katiba ya Kenya, kipengee namba 66, inasema ya kwamba kazi kuu ya seneti hii ni kulinda, kutetea gatuzi zetu. Bwana Spika, itakuwa ni jambo la kuvunja moyo ikiwa sisi tutakuwa tunasema tunatetea gatuzi zetu na hata tuzifahamu na hatuzijui mahali ziko. Kwa hivyo sisi kutembelea gatuzi ya Turkana tutakuwa tukifanya jambo ambalo ni muhimu, kama vile kiongozi wa wachache alivyosema ya kwamba hajatembea sehemu ile, na si yeye peke yake, ni wengi Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo litakuwa ni jambo zuri sisi kutembelea gatuzi zetu, tuweze kuzijua masaibu ambayo wale wanaoishi pale wanapitia, changamoto wanazozipitia, ama hata mambo ambayo ya manufaa wanayotenda ambayo sisi tunaweza tukaiga katika kaunti zetu Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kamati zetu ambazo tuko nazo hapa ningeliomba waweze kuwa na vikao pale. Kwa mfano, mambo ya usalama ndio swala ambalo limekuwa likisumbua ndugu zetu wa kutoka pale Turkana Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo kamati yetu ya usalama ikiwa pale itaweza kulivalia njuga swala hili, na pengine kwa sababu watakuwa pale wataweza kuona ni jambo lipi ambalo wanaweza kulitatua. Bwana Spika, ni katika kamati ya elimu tumeambiwa ya kwamba shule za chekechea zilijengwa nyingi sana na gavana na Nok Bwana Spika. Itakuwa ni fursa nzuri kwa mwenyekiti wangu ambaye ni Senator John Yuto kutoka Murang'a, tuweze kutembea, kuziona na kuona zile hela ambazo walipewa zilitumika ifaavyo Bwana Spika, na tuweze hata sisi kuchukua yale mambo ambayo yamefanya pale na kupeleka katika gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika. Hilo ndilo jambo ambalo litasaidia sana, kwa sababu ikiwa tutakuwa tu ni kutembea na hatuwezi kusoma jambo lolote ambalo litapeka katika gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika, hakutakuwa na haja. Bwana Spika, jambo lingine ambalo ni muhimu, wale ambao wako katika gatuzi zetu wengi hawafahamu kazi ya seneti ni gani Bwana Spika. Unapasa ukitembea mashinani wakikwambia tumemwona gavana ametengeneza barabara, tunamwona mbunge ametengeneza shule ya msingi, lakini seneta hajafanya jambo lolote ambalo sisi tunaliona Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo tukitembea katika gatuzi zetu, hawa wananchi wataweza kufahamu, kwa sababu tutaweza kushirikiana na wao, wataona tukijadili na tutaweza kufahamu kwa kindani Bwana Spika kazi ya seneta. Nakumbuka Bwana Spika, tulitembelea katika gatuzi ya Uasin Gishu Bwana Spika. Tuliweza kuangazia mambo ya ukulima Bwana Spika. Kamati yetu ya ukulima iliangazia shida zilizokuweko wakati ule kwa mambo ya mahindi Bwana Spika. Na Wakenya waliweza kujieleza kinauga ubaga Bwana Spika, na tukaweza kutatua shida walizokuwa nazo wakati ule Bwana Spika. Si ukulima peke yake Bwana Spika. Kamati ya afya Bwana Spika iliweza kutembelea hospitali ya Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital Bwana Spika. Shida zilizokuwa pale tukaweza kuzitatua, kwa sababu tulikuwa na wakati mwingi Bwana Spika, si kutembea na kurudi Nairobi Bwana Spika. Tulikuwa na wiki nzima katika mji ule Bwana Spika, na nina hakika hata sasa Bwana Spika, tukitembea Turkana Bwana Spika, shida walizonazo, changamoto walizonazo, kwa sababu tutakuwa kamati zote zitakuwa katika gatuzi ya Turkana Bwana Spika, nina hakika tutaweza kutatua masaibu na shida walizonazo Bwana Spika, kwa sisi kuwa katika gatuzi ile Bwana Spika. Lakini hata ijapokuwa ninasema tunaenda katika gatuzi ya Turkana Bwana Spika, taarifa nilionayo ambayo si taarifa ambayo ninaweza kusema kwa kindani, taarifa ilisema ya kwamba Laikipia ndio ilikuwa imepewa kipaumbele Bwana Spika. Sijui ni lipi lilisemekana ya kwamba twende Turkana, lakini nakubali, naunga mkono. Pengine wakati mwaka ujao unapokuja Bwana Spika, ningeomba tutembee Laikipia, kwa sababu Laikipia kama ni mambo ya ukame, Bwana Spika, Laikipia ina ukame kwa sababu ikiwa mambo yaliyokuwa akiangaliwa yale yaliyoturukana, kama ni ufugaji, Bwana Spika, Laikipia sisi tumebombea katika ufugaji, Bwana Spika. Ikiwa ni mambo ya ukame, Bwana Spika, Laikipia vile vile shida ni ile ile, Bwana Spika. Ikiwa ni mambo ya usalama, Bwana Spika, Laikipia tuna ile shida. Kwa hivyo ningeliomba, Bwana Spika, tukitoka Turkana tutembee Laikipia, ndio wananchi wa Laikipia waweze kuwaona viongozi wao waliobombea, waweze kumuona mwenyekiti wa chama ama Mheshimiwa Roba, Bwana Spika, waweze kumuona Mandago, Senator Mandago, Bwana Spika, waweze kumuona Cherargei, waweze kumuona Joe Nyutu, waweze kumuona Burfaita, Bwana Spika, waweze kumuona Wamatinga, Bwana Spika, waweze kumuona Chesang, Bwana Spika, waweze kumuona Senator wa kutoka Makueni, Bwana Spika, na Sifuna wa hapa Nairobi, Bwana Spika, na waweze kumuona Faki wa kutoka Turkana. Bwana Spika, nina hakika tutaenda Laikipia, hata ijapokuwa wanasema ngoja unaweza pata mwana si wako. Bwana Spika, mimi nitangoja. Nashukuru na asanti.
Senator Shakila Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion by Honorable Senator Khalwale for visiting Turkana, which is one of the most disadvantaged and marginalized counties, is a good step by this Senate to take. Honorable Speaker, this should not only be limited to Turkana, it should be actually given the opportunity and advantage to most of these marginalized counties, whereby to see what the devolution has done at the grassroots. Because the intention of devolution is to ensure that the marginalized and the most disadvantaged counties grow to the level of the developed counties. So by doing these trips, or by doing this Senate Mashinani, will give the Senate the opportunity to see by itself on how the devolution is working. Mr. Speaker, this is also a very best way of doing, or really the opportunity of the Senate doing its role of oversight at the grassroots. Also, by visiting these counties, it will give the Senate the opportunity to see most of these areas whereby there are big development which is taking place. For instance, Tulo, and maybe when we get the opportunity to visit Tulamu, which I believe we will one time, there is a LAPSET project which is coming, and those are the things which we need to see whether they are actually benefiting the communities, the areas where these developments are happening. So by doing this, Senate Mashinani is a good opportunity for the Senate to know how the communities are benefiting from these big developments. Mr. Speaker, by visiting Turkana, we will also be having the opportunity to see whether the pastoralists are having any other means of empowerment, because we know there are many opportunities which have come out here that Turkana County is having. So it is again very important to know and see whether these opportunities are benefiting the Turkana people. Mr. Speaker, there's also a Turkana University College, which is in Lodwar town. We need to make sure that that Turkana University also has many other students from different counties, whereby they would go and to join that university, whereby it will promote the university and promote Turkana as a whole. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Senator Sige.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the motion of enhancing devolution by having Turkana County Assembly or the county government of Turkana host this house in the next session. Mr. Speaker, one of the major roles of this house is to support devolution, and supporting devolution is, among other ways, of what we've decided by placing before the House this particular motion. We have been given a history about Turkana County, the features that we will celebrate when we are there, the kind of economic activities that are also in that particular county will be an experience that is equal to no other. Mr. Speaker, I am aware that there were other counties that equally had the interest of hosting the Senate. But the fact that Turkana County has emerged to get to this level, I would like to also challenge and give the rest of the counties who would in the near future be looking at this particular event to be hosted in their counties, prepare their ground for the same. I am aware, Mr. Speaker, that the county where the Honorable Senator Kinyua, the Commissioner, is representing, also had expressed interest. I am very sure, Mr. Speaker, very many factors will or have been put in place in order to make the county of Turkana be the place for us to have our next sitting. We will, Mr. Speaker, be showing the people of Turkana and Kenya at large that Senate's role in protecting devolution can actually be seen by our presence in the county of Turkana. I look forward to an opportunity where whatever discussions that will take place during the time we'll be in Turkana will also be of close interest and particularly affecting the people of Turkana, including matters on discussions about marginalized areas, the allocations of resources, and also the impact of resources, which in most cases, like in this case, the Equalization Fund, because I'm informed that Turkana County is one of the counties that is going to benefit largely from the Equalization Fund. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the ways within which we will also encourage, as a number of senators have said, Kenyans to appreciate the work of this House, to support this House, and above all, to make sure that the resources which this House allocates to our counties benefit. Mr. Speaker, I have looked at the assembly of, the County Assembly of Turkana, and I'm encouraged that it is sufficiently equipped to facilitate the sittings of this House. How I look forward to also my county of Bomet playing a role of hosting such an event, because we are doing a state-of-the-art chamber with which in the fullness of time, Senate Mashinani will go out there so as to also celebrate the beauty of other counties and also take Senate Mashinani to all areas relevant to the people of Kenya to encourage them, to support, and to push the work of the Senate to the lowest level of the society. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I look forward to visiting Turkana County and celebrating the work of the Senate there. I thank you.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika pia kunipa fursa hii kuchangia hoja ya kupeleka vikao vya bunge la Senate katika gatuzi la Turkana. Mheshimiwa Spika, Turkana mji mkuu wake ni Lodwar ambao uko takriban kilomita 1500 kutoka jiji la Nairobi. Mheshimiwa Spika, safari ya Turkana ni ya siku 2. Inabidi upumzike Lodwar kama unakwenda na gari kama walala hoi wengi ama mahasla wengi. Baadaye uendelee na safari siku ya pili mpaka Ulada Kitale kwanza, alafu baadaye siku ya pili umalize safari mpaka Lodwar. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii itatoa fursa kubwa kwa bunge la Senate kusoma maeneo ya Turkana na maeneo jirani, na vile vile pia itatoa fursa kwa watu wa Turkana kuangalia kusoma bunge lao linafanya kazi namna gani. Vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa ni fursa ya bunge la kaunti ya Turkana pia kupata fursa ya kuona vikao vya Senate na vile vile kamati tofauti za Senate zinavyofanya kazi, kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, kamati hizi ama mabunge haya ya kaunti mara nyingi huwa yamelemaa kikazi kwa sababu ya kutopata nafasi ya kuweza kusoma kutokana na vile kazi zinavyotendwa katika mabunge mengine. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hii itatoa fursa kubwa kwa bunge la kaunti ya Turkana kuweza kusoma kamati zinafanya nini, na vile vile pia kuhakikisha kwamba zile taratibu za mabunge yote zinafuatwa kama inavyotakana. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo ambalo ningependa kuomba ni kuwa wakati wa ziara hii kamati ya justice ama kamati ya haki na haki za binadamu na sheria izuru mahakama na vile vile gereza la Turkana ili kuona vipi wafungwa kule wanaangaliwa kulingana na sheria, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa sababu mara nyingi zile mahakama ambazo ziko nje ya miji mikubwa na gereza ambazo yako nje ya miji mikubwa, kuna dhulma nyingi sana za haki za binadamu ambazo hazipatikani kuelezwa ama hazipatikani kutambuliwa, na ile hali Kenya ina katiba moja na vile vile ina sheria moja ambayo inawalinda wafungwa popote pale walipo. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ningeomba kwamba kuwe na ziara katika gereza hilo ambalo liko Turkana na vile vile pia mahakama ya Turkana ili tuone kwamba wananchi wanahudumiwa kisheria kama inavyopaswa katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwisho ni kwamba tutapata fursa pia kuona ni mbinu gani ambazo tuweza kuisaidia kaunti ya Turkana kuweza kuongeza mapato yake ya ile tunaita on source revenue, kwa sababu tumeona kwamba pesa ambazo zinatoka katika serikali kuu, Mheshimiwa Spika, zinakwenda zikipungua, japokuwa zinaongezeka kimtazamo, lakini tukiangalia zile kazi na huduma ambazo zinatakana kutolewa na kaunti zile pesa ambazo zinapelekwa sasa zimepungua kuliko zile ambazo zilikuwa zikipelekwa kaunti zile wakati ugatuzi ulipoanza. Vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, tutaona pia vipi huduma za afya katika eneo lile zimeweza kuboreshwa kutokana na kuwepo kwa ugatuzi katika kaunti zetu za Kenya. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, vikao hivi vitakuwa ni muhimu sana, sio kwa bunge la Senate peke yake, lakini kwa bunge la kaunti ya Turkana, Mheshimiwa Spika, na nchi kwa jumla, kwa sababu hivyo ndio tunapata fursa ya kutembea katika nchi yetu na vile vile pia kuona hali za Wakenya wenzetu zilivyo katika maeneo yale. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this motion to have Senate Mashinane in Turkana County. Honorable Speaker, since the advent of devolution, Honorable Speaker, Turkana County has received over 100 billion because the average is of between 9. I think the first year was around 9 billion. But since to date, it's over 100 billion. Recently, we also approved another 1 billion for equalization fund. So this is a good opportunity for senators to go and see what the resources has done for those over close to 11 years, Honorable Speaker. It's also an opportunity, Honorable Speaker, for senators to see the status of the health facilities, both the County River Hospital, district, sub-county hospitals, dispensaries and health centers, Honorable Speaker, because resources have been sent to the counties, but you'll be surprised that we don't see much on the ground. That is why it is good that in the wisdom of Senate, 2018-2019, I think the problem was 2020-21 because of COVID, they didn't go to the counties. This will be good so that we'll see whether we are getting value for money at the counties. Honorable Speaker, it will also be good that time, Honorable Speaker, for all the committees to have meetings within the county, and we'll also request Senate, Honorable Speaker, that we have an interpreter so that, you know, the locals, the Turkana locals there, Honorable Speaker, may follow the proceedings, and even witnesses that will be called so that they know, they value the visit to the county, Honorable Speaker. So I hope we'll have a Turkana interpreter in the assembly that day so that at least the people of Turkana can follow. Honorable Speaker, Turkana County is so big. It will also be a good opportunity for this House to see why we need the Oversight Fund for senators. Because the senator for Turkana, with his own resources, I don't think he'll be able to do oversight in that particular county, Honorable Speaker, because it is big. You can imagine if it is 1,500 kilometers from here to Lodwar, how about now within Turkana itself, and the roads are not good. So it's a need also. It is a reason why when we come back from there, if the oversight fund will not have been approved, we need to push as a House so that we can effectively do oversight with the resources that we are sending to the counties, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, last time I was there we visited as Energy Committee of National Assembly we went to Logichar when they were doing the oil exploration. So I hope also the Energy Committee, while we will be there, will have an opportunity to see and also interrogate and talk to the people and explain to them why they were not able to get any resources from the oil that was exported, the 414,000 barrels that was exported by the government in the last 2 years or so, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also wish the last 3-4 counties that get the least resources, which Elgeyo-Marakwet County includes, be given an opportunity to host this Senate Mashinane, so that also senators can have a feel why some counties like Lamu County, like Elgeyo-Marakwet County, a county like Vika County, they continue just paying salaries for the last 10 years, and there is nothing on the ground because the resources they get, what remains is not enough because they employ, all of them employ 10 CCs, maybe 12 chief officers across. They have the same number of nurses and teachers across, but the money that remains for development is not enough. So that when we push that we change the formula by having additional factors like terrain, you know, as people push for 1/4, 1 shilling, we will also be saying 1/4, 1 shilling, 1 tree, and some terrain, so that at least some of us will, the way your terrain is should be included as a factor so that Elgeyo-Marakwet County can benefit. And I'm requesting in advance that 2024-25, we take Senate Missionary to Elgeyo-Marakwet County so that you can see the beautiful landscape and agree that we need to add additional resources to that particular county. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Omtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion by the majority whip. Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support this motion on many fronts. But before I do that, I want to congratulate the team that came up and made the selection of Turkana as a point where we should start the tour of the country by the 13th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, Turkana County has, other than the international fame about its prehistoric relevance to the history of mankind and the world, Turkana County made headlines in the United States when none other than Ben Carson claimed that his ancestors came from Turkana. So it should show you how important this part of the world is, and we should be able to give it the recognition it deserves. As the Senate of Busia, Busia has got a very special relationship with Turkana. There's a part of Busia whereby if a Turkana speaks in Kiturkana and a Teso speaks in Ateso, they don't need a translator. They understand each other the way a Luya of Busia understands a Luya of Kakamega. So there's that close relationship. The Turkana, and they call, it is clear, it is recorded that the Turkana are part of what is called the Ateker Nation, which includes the Karamoja, the Iteso, the Toposa, and many other groups in that region. It's a big economy, it's a pastoralist economy, and the one that needs a lot of support from the state. Turkana, for me, epitomizes one thing that I hold dear to my heart in terms of political philosophy. As a believer in the primacy of political action within a political entity over the market, the primacy of political action over the market in a political entity, Turkana is one area whereby if market forces are left to determine what happens in Turkana, they will never get out of the challenges they face. The resources, it's only the state that can bring that water to the surface, clean it, and then tell the market, there you go. Do what you want to do with that water. So the primacy of political action, and I'm very happy that you have made a political decision to go to Turkana, because it underscores that this state must consciously intervene and give people the capacity to realize their potential. Mr. Speaker, sir, Turkana produces a lot of fish. Another connection between Busia and Turkana is fish. The Congo are addicted to tilapia from Lake Turkana. And every day, tons and tons of fish flow through Busia into the Congo. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no infrastructure for benefiting Turkana from the fish. There is no infrastructure for even the people of Busia benefiting from hosting the point at which the fish is then changed over into traders from the Congo. We might want to come up with a mechanism whereby Turkana is empowered to make profit out of its resources. When I was a young man, I was invited by Bishop Mann. Those who come from Turkana will know that Bishop Mann at one time was more powerful than the state. Even the DC could ask Bishop Mann to convene a meeting before he could go to address it. Bishop Mann was a Catholic bishop of Lodwar Diocese. I did a bit of pastoral work in Katilu in 1985 and 1986. And I came across a very, very rich culture of the Turkana people, be it in music, be it in culinary arts, be it in medicine, and be it in spirituality, because it's in Turkana, other than Acholi when I was in South Sudan, that I encountered one thing, that I went to church. And during the sermon, when the people, the congregation was coming in, almost everybody had a musical instrument. And when the service began, it was just like an orchestra. That's a very rich culture. There was no choir, there was nothing. It was just everything was a choir. So this is a very rich culture that we need to invest in and we need to protect. I would like to support and expand the view made by Senator Faki that when we go to Turkana, the committees should get active. Not just the Committee on Human Rights, Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights should get active. All the committees, I think, should be active as we go down to Turkana and try to engage and do their oversight role with the local people in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I conclude, I would like to say that all said and done, going to the counties is a sacrosanct action of this house. We are not a Nairobi house. We are a house of the counties. If we go to Turkana and we do our debates in their chamber and what have you, we will be able to influence a lot of things. We'll be able to inspire a lot of things. And we do our committees and maybe invite the other committee, the mirror committees in the counties to sit together with us and see how we do things. And given the superior resourcing that the Senate has compared to counties in terms of the civil service support, they'll be able to learn a lot from us. But over and above all, also, those senators who come from more privileged places than Turkana should take the opportunity to encounter reality. And so that when the next time we deal with the equalization fund, they do not stand in the way of the equalization fund going to where it is supposed to go. It is supposed to equalize us. it's not a fund to be divided that everybody has a share in. Let it remain an equalization fund so that the likes of Turkana, Marsabit, Wajir, Isiolo, and these counties that are heavily challenged by natural resources, by nature, and the hostile environment, and also by historical factors, are given a chance to catch up with the rest of Kenya, which was privileged sometimes by proximity to Nairobi and things like those. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to address this august House, and I thank the Majority Whip and his team for coming up with this very, very, very noble idea and very, very timely idea, and I support that the Senate Mashinani goes to Turkana County. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Okiya Omtata. Senator Mofaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to to support the motion. Honorable Speaker, this is the best way that we can demystify the Senate, because you know Senate is a young entity. We have been around for the last 12 years. There is a lot of misunderstanding about the Senate. So taking the Senate to Mashinani is one way of trying to reach the locals so that they can get to know exactly what the Senate does. In a number of times, Honorable Speaker, I've been confronted by my constituents on why I'm not issuing bursaries. I've been confronted by my constituents why I'm not doing roads. I've been confronted by my constituents why I'm not putting water. So some of these things, Honorable Speaker, are not the preserve of the Senate. So I think this time around, Honorable Speaker, once we are Mashinani, the locals will be able to understand the role of the Senate and demystify the whole idea that Senate is not an implementing house. We are going to spell our roles and our responsibilities as a house, and I hope in the future this move is going to spread across the country, because I would expect that once we are done with Turkana, the next stop is in Tharaka Nithi County, the stronghold, where we are also going to see quite a number of things in my Tharaka Nithi County, because this is the only way, Honorable Speaker, we can easily identify ourselves and make the Senate grow and get understood. It is also an opportunity, Honorable Speaker, that we are going to expose our registrators. We are going to expose our senior Mbona Lwale, who is a seasoned politician in this country, who has been known for decades now. I think the Turkana people would be able to see the famous bull fighter. The Turkana people would also be able to interact with the famous Karen Nyamu. She has been a celebrity across the country, and so many other senators, including Senator Montete, will be able to be seen across the country. So it is an opportunity, Honorable Speaker, and it's an idea that should be supported with all the resolve. So I think next time, Honorable Speaker, this idea should be mooted, and once we are done with Turkana, as I've just said, what is it, Honorable Bullfighter?
What is your point of order, Senator Lwale?
Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want to interrupt, but it's a question of Standing Order number 105 that speaks to accuracy of what a member states. Celebrities, Mr. Speaker, are known by their art. Could he substantiate the art of Karen Nyam? The country is waiting. Many of us agree with him that he's a celebrity, but we don't know the art.
Very well, Senator Mofaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have never known the Honorable Bullfighter speak on behalf of Karen, because Honorable Karen is not disputing whether she's a celebrity. I think celebrity is a broad spectrum. You can be a celebrity in so many aspects. I think Honorable Karen is not complaining she's a celeb, and it's in the domain in this republic that Karen is a celeb. She's a youth representative who has captioned the social forums in very many positive aspects for that matter. So in this regard, Honorable Speaker, it's a good idea that we expose ourselves. You know, we are a young house, 12 years down the line, in comparison to the National Assembly, which has been existent for the last 60 years. This is the only way we can hit the ground and make sure that people understand our role. Because, Honorable Speaker, I've been facing a lot of trouble, a lot of problems with my constituents on why I'm not issuing bursaries, on why I'm not doing roads, and on why I'm not putting water. So with this kind of exposure, Honorable Speaker, I expect and get to know that we are going to be understood, the role that we play, and I think in that way, the Senate is going to grow. So, Honorable Speaker, I support, and the next stop is Tharaka Nithi County. Thank you. I support.
Thank you. Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute in support of the decision of the House Business Committee that we take a one-week sitting session in Turkana in September. Mr. Speaker, the Senate is the house that exists to protect counties and their governments. This move is one move that, in fact, should not be about 1 week in 1 year. I wish to challenge the House Business Committee to actually broaden this decision so we can talk about 5 weeks in a year sitting in 5 counties. If we do that, at the end of this session, we will be able to visit at least 15 counties instead of just visiting 4 counties. Mr. Speaker, as others have said, the role of the Senate is misunderstood, or there is a lot of ignorance around this house. I'm suggesting, even as we plan to go, that we prepare to actually model our oversight role, our representation role, our legislative role. And Mr. Speaker, I suggest that we can also model how Article 189 on intergovernmental relations is supposed to work. I'm suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that we prepare to engage with county assemblies, particularly on the role of oversight, so that we can use the opportunity to give capacity to clarify what the role of county assemblies is and what the role of the Senate is. Mr. Speaker, when one of the county jail committees visited recently, and I will not mention which one, I was a bit embarrassed at their understanding of what the committee role was. They actually thought that they have a role in setting up courts in counties. So they felt they had not been operationalized for a very long time because the judiciary has not been devolved. I was embarrassed. In fact, we were embarrassed as a committee when we heard that. We can use this opportunity to actually meet with the various committees of the counties to enable them to provide part of the capacity building or technical support that can enable counties to actually do their job as legislators at the county. Mr. Speaker, even as we go, I suggest we engage on the issue of getting financial autonomy for county assemblies so that it is an issue we will discuss as we go down. And we can even start discussing with some of the counties before any substantive legislation is done. We need to start persuading county executives to allow county assemblies to operate as independent entities. But for as long as they're not independent entities, county assemblies will be held ransom by county executives. Mr. Speaker, I'm suggesting that any pending audit report for Turkana County be prepared. Maybe the committees dealing with this issue should fast track this so that when we go down, we will also be able to engage with the public on representation in order for the senator for Turkana to be able to say the House has gone through matters that have come before the House on Turkana, and these are the key findings, and we are going to engage with the executive to guide them on how they can work better. Mr. Speaker, the House committees should be able to engage with the other House committees so that on the morning sessions, we should carry out trainings. And Mr. Speaker, I suggest that KEWOSA also prepare to actually provide capacity to nominated county assembly members within the county so that by the time we leave Turkana, we have actually left behind a record that leaves them far much better, that will leave better legislators behind, that will leave a better executive behind, and so on. Mr. Speaker, I urge members to actually fish out the CIDP for Turkana so that we are able to read that CIDP. We should even look at their annual plan so that when we go there, we are able to engage with them in such a way that every county that we will go to will know that the Senate is not just coming here for holiday, but the Senate is coming to hold us accountable in terms of devolution. So, Mr. Speaker, if we plan this properly, this may very well be one of the tools that we use to sell the function of the Senate and to keep the Senate relevant. Mr. Speaker, at this time, the Senate is unpopular because we did not protect counties when it came to the division of revenue bill. We are unpopular. We need to be able to confirm to the country that that was one incident, and we are now remorseful, and we are ready to work and carry out our task as the Senate, and we will protect devolution, we will provide capacity on devolution, we will be able to leave this country in a much better place. Mr. Speaker, we need to prepare on the equalization fund. This is one opportunity when we can find out how the equalization fund division or a portion for Turkana is going to be deployed. So I find that this provides a great opportunity for us to be able to do quite a lot in 1 week. And Mr. Speaker, I beg that this issue, that the Secretariat help us to prepare properly for this visit, but beyond that, that the House Business Committee consider, I can see everybody bidding, wanting the next trip to be in their county. It is possible for us to be able to do these sessions, more of these sessions, and I think the House Business Committee needs to think out of the box and enable us to be able to do that. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think this is a motion that is actually moving to the right direction. As you're aware, this Senate actually represents the entire nation, the 14 counties, and having Senate in the Mashinani and starting it from Turkana is actually a very good move. Honorable Speaker, I want to request, instead of saying having one Senate Mashinani per year, I think I'll request the House Business and those who are concerned to give opportunity at least 2 counties every year, so that at least by the end of the term, we'll be able to visit 8 counties, and that represents 8 regions. And I think that will be a better sample than having only 4 for the entire period for the Senate will be operating until 2027. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, Kenya actually is a land of contrast. It's a beautiful country that's endowed with a lot of resources, with a lot, that has been endowed with a lot of features, but most of us are not exposed. Probably most of the government, the senators have had only exposure within their counties and Nairobi where they come to debate. I think now going to Turkana will give time for the members to get used and see the actual part, the better parts of Kenya. One thing you should know is, and I think I'll request the colleagues and the team, that we should be traveling by road, so at least we can be able to experience the difficulties that have been faced by the rest of Kenyans, especially the far-fetched areas. If you see the infrastructure, then each of us will accept to give Turkana and the northern Kenya like Wajir, Marsabit, and Mandera more money than what they're getting now. Because I see here, I feel that some of the senators feel that we're giving a lot of money to those areas. Those areas have been neglected for many years. Session Paper 10 of 1965 has really discriminated and really separated this country. That the northern frontiers have been condemned with all the capacity they have, with all the resources that is available. We have a lot of hydrocarbons, we have gases, we have oil, we have everything. We have the animals, we have the gold, but unfortunately it has not been exploited. And one thing I can tell you, this country will only develop when we exploit the northern lands, which is actually endowed with a lot of resources. Honorable Speaker, the business of saying, I know some of these people are saying, we look at one man, one shilling, one vote, but the thing is, if these people have been getting development from the colonial up to today, people have been developed, areas have been developed. I think, honestly, the issue of even giving equalization fund to more of other counties that have been developed was not affected, because those areas like Turkana are so undeveloped. We still need to give them more money, and we need to develop them. And this exposure, I think, will make people to realize that Turkana really needs, and other parts like Marsabit and Wajir and Mandera will require, and Garissa will require more money for development. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is, you see, this will give us a comparative study. People will get exposed, and they will know. If you go to 20 years ago, areas like Dubai was just a desert. But today, each of us wish to see and move to Dubai and see how things have been developed, the kind of economy that is going on. Equally, Mandera and Marsabit and Wajir can have this kind of opportunity. If given the opportunity, we will have even a better development, because Wajir and Marsabit and Turkana are not desert. It's not a desert. It's just an arid area. They have marginal areas that can be developed, and that food can be produced. We can improve the livestock. We could do a better economic activities in those areas. Now that the land in Kenya is shrinking by the day, especially in Mount Kenya and in Kakamega, where the bullfighter comes from. That you need to have more land now. We need to exploit more land. So I think we need to move out of this place and move to areas like Turkana, Wajir, and Mandera, where we can make it the breadbasket of this country. Mr. Honorable Speaker, I think this Senate should have more exposures. We need to also see how life has changed. Before before we started the county issues, before the counties and the new dispensation of the 2010 Constitution, people from those areas used to say that when they come to Nairobi, they will tell you that they're going to Kenya. But today, just because they have seen some developments in those areas, they have seen now tarmac, houses have been built well, good houses have been built, hospitals have been built. Now they appreciate that they're part of Kenya. Once now they see the Senate again, I think they will see now that really the Senate is a serious house, that is getting exposed, and that they want to know the problems that are existing, that we need to see the much of work that has been done and what is remaining, so that by the time we are given a budget appropriation, then we'll be having at least at the back of our mind that Turkana requires so much money for ABCD, for more development, for hospital, for food, and all these things. As it is, I will again put my request that let's have 2 counties per year, so at least every region can be have at least one sitting of the Senate, so that at least across the board we can be able to have that everybody, I mean, every region can at least appreciate that the Senate actually means business, and the Senate is ready now to work for devolution and to see that devolution becomes successful, and so that we can be able also to inspect and visit some of the development that has taken place within the last 15 years. That, I think that will be able to give us a better picture of what this country is, and we will be able to appreciate that we need to have more money for those areas. With those few remarks, I beg to support the motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Abbas. Senator Kibwana Ali Hamida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the Senate Mashinani. It is indeed a good initiative, great initiative. We shall be able to explore Turkana. Some of us have always known, of course, it's a dry area where they don't have hotels. We'll be sleeping in manyatas, so it will be a good experience. Mr. Speaker, I will also, at least, it will be an opportunity for us to drink blood and eat raw meat.
Senator Hamida, did you say we have got no hotels in Turkana?
That's what I thought. That's what I'm saying. It will be a good opportunity for us. I thought we'll just be under manyatas, but then it's a good opportunity to explore. But it will also be good to be at least under manyata. I'll also urge my fellow Okewasa team so that we prepare ourselves to visit many areas. One, the prisons also, at least to take to them some goodies, the beddings, the sanitary pads. It will also be an opportunity for us to visit also the health cares, looking at the maternal health care. Opportunities also to mentor young girls, to discuss about the FGM and the stigma for the fistula. Fistula right now, it's really an issue. And now that actually we have hospitals offering surgeries, so this should be an opportunity to enlighten the Turkanas. Mentoring the girls, getting to understand their issues, and also support on different areas. A county like Turkana, seriously, requires so much support. Also mental support. Also visit, you know, the police. I'm actually, Mr. Speaker, doing a mental health for police officers. Also take time to discuss with them, getting to understand. Of course, we know what they've been going through, even the cattle rustling and all the stuff. So let us have also the mental health. I will follow up the mental health that are done before for postpartum depression. And so far, I'd urge the counties to have separate wings for postpartum mothers going through mental depression. So this will really be an opportunity, and also to oversight the counties on gender parity, on gender issues, just to understand how they have their gender composition in the counties. Well, this is really, we shall explore so much, like actually the oil. We would even want to visit the black gold, do they call it that? I mean, the oil itself, for us to understand. We are so rich in such, and even in minerals in Kenya, it's just that we don't do so much, you know, exploration. So this will be an opportunity. And also, let us also get to understand the area of needs before we travel there. So that I'm sure many hospitals are lacking hospital beds, equipments, items. So how do we support before? So I would urge even the Senate, KEWOSA team, let us get to understand what do they really require. and support them before. I know water is scarce, water is really an issue. Is it possible for us to actually do a well in Turkana? I realize there's a time that Isiolo required some water, and we did a well. We only spent about 700 and something as my family actually, and we did a well and they have water. So is Turkana the same? So how do we support as women? How do we support also, you know, the men? They also have issues. So this will be, we'll have all the time. In fact, 1 week, I'm just imagining 1 week in Turkana. So we really need to gear ourselves. But I'm sure it will be a good opportunity for us actually even to understand the culture itself. Like I said, looking at the culture, we always see things on TV and many others, and people say, there's a saying that kwa ground vitu ni different. So we actually want to understand what is on the ground. Mr. Speaker, for that reason and many other reasons, I do support the opportunity and I mean the journey to Senate Mashinani to Turkana. Thank you. I support.
Senator Joyce Correa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to thank the Honorable Senator Pony for bringing this motion to this House. And I must first thank the Committee on House Business for really working it out to make sure that Turkana County is given priority in terms of Bunge Mashinani. Honorable Speaker, I've really been waiting for this time, and I've listened to a number of colleagues who have talked on the same. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, I believe this will not be business as usual, just going to the ground and making pleasing the locals that we are in the ground. But I believe it's a time that we really have to look into a number of issues that are affecting these counties. I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, because right now the devolution has gone a full cycle, bearing in mind that the governor of that particular county has been a member of parliament. And I want to say has been there in terms of during the time of revenue allocations. I also want to thank the Senator of Turkana because he has been also a member of parliament and right now he's a senator. We also have a number of governors who are with us. And I want to say this, and even a number of MCAs. And then the reason why I'm bringing this in is because, Honorable Speaker, despite the fact that we are alleging as the Senate that we want to see the finances that have been given to those particular counties, what it has done. I want to also say that the governors have also been going through a number of challenges, ranging from the exchequers to, let me say, the delays that sometimes is caused by the national government or the treasury. Honorable Speaker, allow me to say this, that it will be prudent for this House to really plan itself well for this very, very important discussion that is going to take place within that particular county. This is one of the counties that most of the time we call upon the donors and to assist when it comes to droughts and other natural calamities, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say that this is one of the counties, again, that I've listened to a number of colleagues and I've touched a number of issues or a number of resources that are lying unutilized. Despite the fact that we have the challenges of late remittance of their revenues, Honorable Speaker, we always encourage, as the Senate and even members of the county assemblies, normally encourages the counties to generate their own revenue. By so saying, we have petroleum, and petroleum is an item or is a product that have enabled a number of countries to develop, one of them
being Emirates countries, Honorable Speaker. This is one of the products that was identified in that particular county, Honorable Speaker, and I believe it's the only product that can change the lives of Turkanas, Honorable Speaker, if it's going to be done in the right way. I believe there have been a number of challenges that have led to the maybe misuse of funds and even misunderstandings between the government and the residents of that particular county. It is a high time that the Committee on Petroleum, I think Energy and Petroleum in this House, should really look into these issues like that. I believe these are some of the issues that the residents of that particular county are going to ask, and they would want to have the answers correctly, Honorable Speaker. And the reason why I'm saying this also, Honorable Speaker, is because I've been lucky to have attended a function which was, there was an initiative that was done by this government, the Kenya Kwanza, where we had a team by the name Inua Mama, where we could move across the country. And I was lucky to have been one of them, and I got an opportunity to move to this county, Honorable Speaker. And I can tell the suffering, I can tell the frustration, I can tell the challenges that this county is really undergoing, Honorable Speaker, despite the fact that we are saying that the monies have been defaulted. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that as a Senate, which is in between the national government and the county government, the main responsibility is for us to see the counties prosper. It's a high time for this House. We still have enough time to really look at the devolved functions that have been devolved to the counties, so that at least we come up with a conclusive report whereby we will not go just debate because we want to debate, but to debate on issues that are touching directly on the lives of these people. There is an agenda that has been started by the government, and I know a number of us, especially our colleagues from the other divide, are not in concurrence with us in terms of housing. But I want to say, Honorable Speaker, sometimes we give resources to the counties, but because of the fastness of the county, it is difficult to provide basic needs. Honorable Speaker, these are some of the counties where I believe if this program of housing starts from those counties, say that every citizen or every local from that particular county or other counties that are having the same problem are given basic needs, I think this nation will move forward, Honorable Speaker. The challenge that we have in this country, I believe, is a lot of politics, a lot of corruptions that has led to these challenges that the locals always doesn't have the trust with the government. Recently, I watched a TikTok, and there was a lady, a young girl, who was like talking to the government, throwing a lot of insults. She was very courageous. This shows the frustration that they are undergoing, the pains that they are undergoing, to an extent that they don't see the reason why the government is in place. But I want to say, it's a high time, and I want to thank this government specifically. Yesterday, I was in a meeting in Nakuru with His Excellency, the Deputy President, specifically trying to handle the issues of drugs and alcohol in this country, which has become a menace in a number of youths. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, if the Senate also will take an initiative of going to these counties, I know our governors, the county assemblies, and even the Senate will be able to up their game and do their work right, Honorable Speaker. So without far much ado, let me just say, Honorable Speaker, I support this motion, and I want to say that let it not just be a way of just going to the counties, but let it be productive. Let's see something being done in issues, petroleum, issues, housing, matters, water. There's a day that I was looking into when it was there was a lot of cries from that particular county, and I was looking at the document where there was some serious investors who decided to just do a research on a number of things that are affecting the Turkana County. And we found there are a lot of water, but still the residents doesn't access water, Honorable Speaker. So it's high time that we try to bring the issues of urbanization in some of these areas, whereby they can choose to have the two homes within the town and within the villages, so that they can be able to be given these basic needs for them to be able to move and be able to get services like any other Kenyan. Otherwise, the issues also that have been raised by the Honorable Muma on the issue of having 5 sittings a year, I think I support that. I think I support that because, Honorable Speaker, 5 weeks within a year is not much. This can assist us to at least move to regions. You divide among the regions that we have in this country, so that at the end of the term, we might have even moved to around 20 or so counties. So I want to say I support, and I must congratulate the motion mover and say that that is the best direction that we are moving. But please, let's still sit down and fine-tune on the best thing or the best practice that we are going to do there once we are in those particular counties. Thank you.
Senator Osotsi Godfrey Atieno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also support this very important motion by the majority whip. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate the Senate for this very innovative idea of taking the Senate to the grassroots. I think Senate is one of the houses which is not well understood by the people in the grassroots. Because you know, Mr. Speaker, representation is very key, but most people on the ground relate representation with development. And given that Senate, we do not have a fund, many people think that National Assembly works more than us. But this idea of taking our sessions to the counties or to the regions will help in engaging the public and making them understand the role of Senate in devolution process and also in legislative processes in this country. So this is a very, very important idea. And Mr. Speaker, maybe as we plan for this event, this particular session, I think we need to expand it to include committees so that committees also engage in the regions. When we are in Turkana, we should not just do the plenary. Some of our committees can hold their sittings in that county. And some of the committees that would do a good job in engaging in the grassroots are basically accountability committees. That is the CPAC and CPI. So that the people will get involved with the Senate on matters of accountability, on matters of usage of resources in the grassroots. So as we improve on this concept, we need also to think about how we can also devolve our committee sittings, not just visit to the grassroots. So this is a very important thing. Mr. Speaker, Turkana is a very, very unique county because Turkana has mineral resources like oil. Turkana has huge energy opportunities. For example, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about solar energy. We are talking about hydro energy like Takwel plant, where energy can be produced to ensure that this country is adequate in energy provision. Mr. Speaker, several members have talked about water. Water is very important. But a study done in 2013 by UNESCO found out that there is huge
water reserves in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, it is very ironical that this week, actually last week, my Committee of Public Investment and Special Funds, we had a lot of issues with the Turkana County government in terms of management of water resources. The company that manages water in that county, Lodwar Water and Sewerage Company, this company is a company that is dead. This company is a company that does not understand what accountability is. You can imagine a company, a public company, where private individuals are shareholders. This is a matter that it's being handled by my committee, and that tells you how governance is still an important issue in this country. That you are sitting on water reserves, but you cannot exploit those water opportunities because of mismanagement. So when we get an opportunity to go to Turkana, these are some of the things that Senate will get to engage the public on. Turkana is also one of the counties that receive highest shareable revenue. But Mr. Speaker, there is very little to show for it on the ground, largely because of issues of corruption, issues of misuse of funds, and I think it is an opportunity for us to understand the real situation on the ground as far as the utilization of the funds that we appropriate to these counties is concerned. Turkana is also a very strategic county in terms of regional integration. You know, Turkana borders Uganda, and you've seen recently the president of Uganda having an issue with the cross-border issue with the people from Turkana. Ethiopia also, we have a lot of regional issues with Ethiopia, and also Southern Sudan. So it will be very important for committees which are involved in matters of regional integration, in matters of cohesion. We'll have to get an opportunity to understand these issues when they engage the public. Mr. Speaker, the Senate also will have to demonstrate to the people about its role in this country in terms of oversight, in terms of resource allocation, and in terms of its space in the constitution of this country. So this is an exciting moment. This is a moment to rebrand Senate, and this is a moment to really understand issues affecting our people in unique counties like Turkana, counties which are vast in terms of land size, counties which also have huge natural resources which are not being exploited, and counties which also have huge historical values. As you know, they say a lot about ancient civilization. Some aspects of ancient civilization started in Turkana, they say. So this is a good choice, and I want to commend the House Business Committee for deciding that the next place we need to go to is Turkana. And I think when we make such sound decisions as a House, this is one of the things that make us appear unique and appear more serious. There is also the issue of equalization fund, Mr. Speaker. It is also an opportunity for us to engage the public on the place of equalization fund in this country and how it should be, how well it should be managed and how well it should be utilized, because equalization fund was meant for those regions which are economically behind to catch up with the rest of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, I also think that that engagement with the county of Turkana is also going to improve the capacities of county assembly in Turkana. for them to understand how legislative processes run, and also to understand the best practices in parliamentary practices and their role as people who play primary oversight in the counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the idea of Senate going mashinani, and I think we need to have a clear program on this for adequate preparation. So we can say, for example, Mr. Speaker, that for every session, maybe you can have one week where we are sitting outside Nairobi, and we know the counties in advance, so that early preparations can be made, and we can have more meaningful engagement when we go to those regions. Mr. Speaker, for those many remarks, I support the motion.
Thank you, Senator Otsotsi. Honorable members, time for debate on this particular motion has since been consumed. I'm looking at my dashboard. Still, I've got a huge list of members who are seeking to speak to this motion. I would like to request that I allow one member from either side, then I call upon the mover to reply, but with limited time. If we can spare the next 5 minutes to conclude, so that we are able to move to the next order paper. Nyamu Karen Njeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For me, Mr. Speaker, it will be an opportunity to visit northern Kenya. There before, there's nothing you could have said to me or even promised me to entice me enough to visit Turkana country. And it is county, Mr. Speaker, and it is true that the residents of Turkana, as they visited other parts of the country, used to say that we are visiting Kenya because of how they were cut off from the rest of the country, affecting service delivery, and depressing images of hunger and crazy levels of poverty. It is also said, Mr. Speaker, rumor has it that errant civil servants used to be transferred to Turkana as a disciplinary measure because of the kind of hardships that were there before devolution. And Mr. Speaker, the onset of devolution became like a second independence for this county. And so for me, having Senate Mashinani in Turkana is not only timely, but very significant, and it is like a celebration for us Senate who are charged with the responsibility of oversight, to oversight devolution in our country. It is an opportunity to take stock of how far we have come with the devolution, because with devolution, businesses have thrived. In Lodwar, we have more population, and we are set to see Turkana benefit in the housing plan of this government. We are looking forward to that. Mr. Speaker, also Lodwar has been dotted by skyscrapers, and a lot of the tourist sector is growing, among others, Mr. Speaker. And for me, I look forward to having this week in Turkana as we take stock of our progress. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Montet Batuli Betty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also want to join my colleagues in supporting this motion and thank the Business Committee and the Majority Whip for bringing such an important motion to the House. Mr. Speaker, I think Senate Mashinani is one of the very, very important issues that Senate should take seriously. Looking at the last Senate, when they went to Eldoret, it was not only interesting, but historic. Members of the public felt that the Senate has gone to them. It will be able to listen to them closely, and they were able to express themselves and bring out the issues from that area. And I think to date, so many issues which were brought up by the community there have become historic. I would also want to support that, Mr. Speaker, that Senate Mashinani should not be once a year. I think it will be very encouraging to the members of the public to know that to know the role of the Senate, to know exactly what is expected of us, and for that matter, we should have more visits. As my colleagues suggested, if we could make them maybe 4 or 5 in a year, that will do some justice to our role of oversighting the counties. I would also want to say that supporting the county governments is very crucial. And this one, since I know the Office of the Speaker is very able and capable of organizing these visits, I would suggest that they are researched well so that by the time we get to a county, we know the problems they're facing, we know what the committees, the different committees can deal with, citing Turkana on security, on cohesion, agriculture. Those are committees which should be prepared properly and adequately to deal with the issues which would come out from the members of the public. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to clearly support this and ask and urge the Business Committee to plan more sittings in other counties so that counties can also benefit from having Senate sitting in their counties and dealing with their problems directly. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to support all my other colleagues who supported this motion, and I want to say that I support that motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Montet. Betty, honorable members, I'm aware that I've just directed that I'll grant 2 members to speak, and I want to exercise the discretion to still allow 1 more member from either side who've expressed interest and are still in the House to speak to this motion, so that we call upon the mover to reply. And in this instance, let me call upon Senator Joe Nyutu from Muranga, and thereafter Senator Sifuna Edwin to speak to it in that particular order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am appreciative that you have given me this opportunity to also support this motion. Mr. Speaker, Turkana County is a county that is not very known to most of us. And I think it would be quite an experience for senators to visit that county, for senators to interact with the members of the community of that particular county, Mr. Speaker. Like most of those that have spoken before me have said, Mr. Speaker, this is a county of many resources, a county that has oil, a county that has volumes and volumes of water according to reports that have been widely publicized, Mr. Speaker. It is also a county where we as Senate would want to go visit and see what has been able to be achieved, especially through the equalization fund that this particular county, alongside others, has enjoyed for over 10 years now, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, we must see what governors do with the cash that we give them through the division of revenue bill, Mr. Speaker, so that we can be able to know why is it, for example, the Turkana and other counties that normally suffer from effects of drought, Mr. Speaker, why we still do not have ways and mechanisms, for example, of harvesting water 10 years down the line, actually 11 years now, Mr. Speaker. It would also be very important that we make the members of this particular community feel that Kenya in general feels and recognizes them. Because it is said, we hear stories that people of Turkana will always ask you once you land there how Kenya is. Because they believe that Turkana is not in Kenya. It is a high time, Mr. Speaker, that we acted to show these particular brothers and sisters of ours that they indeed belong to us and we belong to them, that they are Kenyans. And what would be better than the Senate holding its sittings there, interacting with these people, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a well-thought motion which anybody that cares about nationhood, anybody that minds about statesmanship should encourage, Mr. Speaker. And because time is much gone and the mover still has to do his business, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support this particular motion with all my strength, so that, Mr. Speaker, we may be able to get the feel of things in some of these so-called marginalized counties, Mr. Speaker. And so with that, I beg to support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna Edwin Watenya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me time to also contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, I am a member of the SBC and a champion of this idea that we need to return this house to the grassroots so that we can maintain that contact with the people. Mr. Speaker, as a new member of this house, I have actually felt the insulation that you get when you walk into this chamber, because you are aware that, first of all, apart from me and maybe my brothers from Kiambu, Machakos and Kajiado, if you are talking to the senator of Turkana, it's a very far distance from Turkana to here. And sometimes that distance, coupled with the security arrangements that we have in this particular place, you can feel extremely insulated from what actually the people are telling us. I am a firm believer that there has to be constant contact between representatives of the people and the people themselves, and especially in controversial times such as we live in, Mr. Speaker. I would have loved, Mr. Speaker, to see more engagements in more counties. In fact, I agree with my colleagues here who have proposed that we need to increase the sort of sittings that we have in a year so that we can cover more of these counties. Let us not fear the people. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it would be extremely interesting if the history of this Senate machinani is anything to go by, for us to be able to go back and do the business that we transact in this house in close proximity with the people. I believe that the closer you are to the fire, the faster you cook. And Mr. Speaker, there have been decisions here that have been taken by some of our colleagues which we disagree with strongly. I would love to see those decisions being made in the presence of the people, because sometimes I can come here and claim that I speak for the people of Nairobi, when I know for a fact that if I went to Ofafa Jericho tomorrow to say that, yes, I support demolition of Ofafa Jericho so that new houses can be constructed there, I will be lynched. I will not even be able to leave that estate, because the people of Ofafa Jericho have given express instructions that as far as they are concerned, they don't want their estate to be demolished. I would love to see a situation, Mr. Speaker, that critical votes on critical issues affecting Mwananchi are actually done in the presence of Mwananchi. If we were able to allow the public to come into this gallery from all the 290 constituencies, for instance, Mr. Speaker, during the vote on the division of revenue, I can assure you it would be a very interesting vote. I would love to see, Mr. Speaker, even as we go to the vote on the finance bill in the National Assembly, how I wish the National Assembly followed the example of the Senate and actually held their sittings in the constituencies during the vote on the finance bill.
What's
Mr.
your
Speaker,
point of order, Senator Cherargei?
You know, my good friend, Senator Edwin Sifuna, is a very serious legal practitioner in this country. Mr. Speaker, understanding 105, standing order number 105, and also under our constitution about the exercise on behalf, Mr. Speaker. Under the constitution, Mr. Speaker, the sovereignty of the people is either exercised directly or indirectly. Does Senator Sifuna want to tell Kenyans that the fact that the great people of Nairobi have elected him to represent them in the Senate, he wants again to abdicate that authority that has been given to go ahead and also call the great people of Nairobi to come to this house to vote on their own behalf, Mr. Speaker? Is it in order to mislead the public that we are voting or exercising authority on our own behalf? Yet he knows that all of us were elected to represent the interests indirectly as provided by the Constitution of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order?
Senator Sifuna, you take note of the comments under that particular standing order by Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect to my younger colleague in the professional, the Honorable Senator Fonandi, I do believe that I understand this document quite well, the Constitution of Kenya. There is a reason why the framers expressed the delegated authority as exercisable directly or indirectly, Mr. Speaker. And all I was saying is that on critical matters affecting Mwananchi, I think he was not in here when I was talking about the sort of insulation that I feel, insulation from the people when you are in this chamber. Because of the layers of security, because of the distance from home, sometimes you feel that you can say things here, and by the time you travel to your constituency, you will have sent people to convince people not to heckle you. Mr. Speaker, all I am saying is this. I, as a representative of a people, would want nothing more than the people to know what it is that I do in this house, which is why we even have parliamentary broadcasting services, so that the people can see if it is indeed true that the things that you are saying on the floor here are not your own things, but the things that the people sent you. I gave him an example of Ofafa Jericho because, Mr. Speaker, we in Nairobi here are in the process of redeveloping old city council estates. I was in Ofafa Jericho, and they told me that for them, they view this redevelopment different from the people, say, in Woodley, the people in Bahati. All I am saying is, on that critical day when a decision is being taken, I am sure, and I know because I'm also a politician, that the mood would be very different. And I gave the example of the Senate Mashinani in September 2018 in Uasin Gishu, at the height of the problems with our maize farmers. I was not a senator then, but I watched with great respect the people of Uasin Gishu telling their senator to his face that that is not the position we sent you to take. And I suggested, Mr. Speaker, that the National Assembly should follow the example that has been set by the Senate. And on this particular bill, the finance bill, I would wish that that bill be voted for while the Assembly is not here in Nairobi, not behind this fence, but mashinani kwa ground, so that when you tell us that you are voting for the people of Kipkelion, and they have sent you that they are saying that you support the finance bill with these punitive tax measures, the people can be there to tell you, no, we want to do this ourselves. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I am a firm supporter. And in fact, I am happy that you chose the North Rift. As you know, Turkana is an ODM government there. Personally, would want to be there to see some of the things that my governor is doing there. Mr. Speaker, I have argued in other quarters that, in fact, if some of these national institutions were taken permanently to some of these areas that are troubled with insecurity, like the North Rift, because of the sort of security I see my brother, the Senator Fonandi, moving around with, if we were to replicate that for all the 67 senators, there would be enough security in the North Rift to deal with the problem of banditry. So, Mr. Speaker, I have even hazarded the proposal that we should move these houses. If cabinet used to meet in Kapenguria, if the Senate was doing its proceedings from Kapedo, I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, because They needed to fortify and protect you as representatives of the people. Those bandits would be sorted out in a matter of months. However, Mr. Speaker, I support the move. Let us see as the SBC how we can accommodate some of the views that have been given by our members, that we try and increase the number of appearances on the ground there so that we can have more contact with the people. I'm very also pleased to go to Turkana as a member of the Senate Energy Committee because, Mr. Speaker, there is a live dispute there under the Senate Energy Committee involving the Lake Turkana wind power project, where a court decision has just been rendered to return the land that the project sits on back to the people of Turkana. It is a dispute that the Senate cannot avoid or ignore, because as you know, public land is land that is entrusted in our counties. And it will be interesting for us to hear from the people themselves. You know, Mr. Speaker, when these people make petitions to us here in Bunge, as I've said, because we are so far removed and we are enclosed in this cocoon, sometimes we cannot understand what the people are saying. You need to be there to see it. Mr. Speaker, after the construction of that project, and we in the Energy Committee have engaged with this issue quite robustly, the people of Turkana are still off the grid. They don't enjoy the electricity that is generated in their own areas. So I want to support this. We should do this in more counties. I wish we could go to Meru to see how our governor is going on after the decision that was made in this Senate. There are problems also in the South Rift where the speaker comes from, in Bomet, in Nandi, in Kericho, with the tea harvesting machines and the conflict with the people there. I wish that we could go there so that we can also deal with those issues there on the ground and solve it for the people. Lastly, I know that the Senate sits in Nairobi, but I would also be wanting that this time round you don't leave us out of Senate Mashinani the way that you did with the Equalization Fund. Because Nairobi is not just here in CBD, Mr. Speaker. There was a team that came from Mukuru Kwanza to petition the Senate Energy Committee about the lack of supply of electricity in that area. So next time, allow also Nairobi to host Senate Mashinani, where we don't just sit here. We go into the vijijis. Let us go to Ofafa Jericho to see the issue of redevelopment of the city estates. Let's go to Mukuru. Let's go to Mihango, Mr. Speaker, so that we also in the people of Nairobi do not suffer because we are your gracious hosts. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Edwin Sifuna from Nairobi. And for your information, you made reference to Senator Cherargei representing the people of Kipkelion. I'd like to inform you that Kipkelion is in the county of Kericho, represented by the majority leader. Honorable members, there being no other senator who wishes to speak to this particular motion, I now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a great joy to sit in this house the whole afternoon and listen to members. I used to think the work of a speaker is boring, but having listened to members, they say very useful things. And I thank all of you, apart from Senator Kisang and Senator Sifuna. They are the only two senators who, while supporting this motion, have requested that sittings be held in their counties. The rest of the senators preferred that we go far and beyond so that we can be ferried across the Republic. I thank you, all of you. I also want to thank Senator Muma. She has been very innovative. She said we can actually do 15 counties in one term by us doing 5 in every year, or rather session for that matter. And it's actually doable. It means we just set aside 5 weeks out of 54 weeks in a year, and we can do those 5 counties so that not many people would think that they will wait for a lifetime before Senate reaches them. And because it is doable, and because it is her brainchild, I want to urge her, so that I don't look like I'm plagiarizing by taking her idea, I want to urge Senator Muma to go ahead and prepare this motion so that when the Parliamentary Service Commission will be doing its budget for the next financial year, which is coming, just there around the corner, they can then provide funds for this very innovative and very important suggestion. I also want to thank members because I've heard them, Mr. Speaker. They have shown that Turkana can be a tourist destination. Members in their contribution have shown, Senator Sifuna has told us, that we can make Turkana the center for production of electricity. Members have shown, Mr. Speaker, that Turkana, we don't have to shy away from desalination of the water, and they have said that it's quite possible, Mr. Speaker, that we spend some money, 50 million shillings, to do that process, and they are saying if we can do it on electricity, why not on water? It reminds me, Mr. Speaker, in today's print media, there was a photograph of a woman, a young woman in North Hall. Mr. Speaker, this woman had collected dirty water in a tin container, and she was carrying her 2-year-old, thereabout, son on her back, and she was giving him that water. When I think about these things, I don't feel nice. Maybe some of you are too young to love a child. But with the kind of wealth we have in this country, that a woman in North Hall can collect water, dirty water, in a tin container and give the child, and we are government, I think we should not allow. I think the governor of Marsabit, from which this woman comes from, I hope she captured this footage. He did capture this footage. They must make water a priority. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it is sad that when you hear the governors from the ASAL areas speak about water, I have heard them. They have even made pleas. It is about water pans. They are more concerned about giving water to their animals than they are concerned about giving water to the populace. These things that we are speaking to was the very intention of devolution. Mr. Speaker, you've heard the conversation where some people, including some senators, are suggesting that the health docket should be taken to the national government. If you do that, then let's wind up devolution. To take health closer to the people, it must be domiciled in the county governments. And Mr. Speaker, the real problem why health is not functioning, it is because we are holding money meant to run health programs at Afya House. All over the world, not all over the world, in the third world, all over the globe, it is donor support that drives the health sector. So the donor money, the global funds for HIV, NASCOP, malaria fund, tuberculosis, name them, infectious diseases, all of them, that money is domiciled at Afya House. If this donor money could directly go to governors, and then we as senators, we are empowered with an oversight fund, we pin these governors down, we will have delivery of very good health services to our people. Finally, you'll be going to Turkana. I heard somebody say, you will see why Lomenen can never be an effective senator of Turkana. Where would he get the facility to make him move over 1,000 kilometers from one end, over 800 kilometers from one end of the county to the other. His oversight role is completely ineffective. And this is why, despite Turkana getting over 200 billion shillings in the last 10 years, they have not made serious strides. I thank you, and I move the motion. Sorry, I thank you, and I beg to reply, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I thought I was moving the motion. I'm starting to grow old.
Honorable members, pursuant to Standing Order 84.1, I make a determination that the matter does not affect counties, and I now put the question, Honorable Senators, I put the question that aware that the Senate of Kenya is established under Article 93 of the Constitution, and its main role as set out at Article 96 is to represent, serve, and protect the interests of the counties and their governments, further aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, and the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public, acknowledging the successes made during the sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi, held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in September 2018 and in September 2019, respectively. Further acknowledging the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises in Parliament buildings, Nairobi, during the term of the 13th Parliament, and the subsequent resolution of the Senate made on the 8th of March 2023 to hold plenary and committee sittings in the counties for a one-week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during an election year, with the objective to, 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate and Parliament in general. 2, highlight existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process. 3, develop and strengthen the partnerships at the county level of government. And 4, provide an opportunity to members and staff of county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126, Sub-Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, the Senate resolves to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Turkana County from 25th to 29th September 2023. Honorable members, will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, I would like to go back to the order paper and defer the following motions 8, order paper number 8, number 9, and 10. This is because of quorum. These are bills which ought to be before the committee of the whole. Yes, this is number 8, 9, 10, and 11. Those bills stand to be deferred to the next sitting, and rearrange the order paper to have order number 16 be called upon. Next order.
Order number 16, the Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2022, second reading.
Sorry, the order paper number 13, 14, and 15 are deferred. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to move the bill, the Employment Amendment Bill 2022. Mr. Speaker, this is the famous bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill has been covered by many international media houses, been called. This is the moment, Mr. Speaker, and
Senator
I want to...
Cherkey, just go ahead and properly move the bill as appears in the order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to move for second time the Employment Amendment Bill Employment Amendment Bill 2022. The bill be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, I want from the onset to say this is the bill that at some point in media, many other places, there has been a lot of misinformation. This is the bill called Right to Disconnect. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, the onset of remote working from home, many people, Mr. Speaker, did not know the value of working from home until the COVID of 2019 came into place. And that is the famous word says, kindly work from home. Because they were discouraging people from coming to offices, Mr. Speaker, because of the challenge of the COVID at that time where crowd was being avoided, Mr. Speaker. So this bill is essentially about right to disconnect, and I want to put it from the onset, Kenya is not the only country that is pushing right to disconnect. Mr. Speaker, the rights of employees continue to grow by the day. Article 41 is in our Progressive Constitution 2010, talks about the rights of employees, Mr. Speaker, sir. One of the rights, we know the basic rights, like right to fair remuneration, right to good working conditions, right to employment. Mr. Speaker, this bill is coming at the right time because we are talking about the rights of employees. Even the famous conversation about the housing levy fund. When you look at section 31, is it 31 of the Employment Act, it says that every employer must provide a housing or a living quarters for their employees in a convenient working place, Mr. Speaker. So we are just expanding and enriching the working environment, Mr. Speaker, of our employees. This bill, it talks about the essential right to disconnect. Mr. Speaker, with a remote working environment, we need to protect right to privacy, right to family time, Mr. Speaker. A research that was done in US, you find younger management send the work of emails, SMSs, WhatsApp, assignments to employees beyond 5 p.m., Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this bill of right to disconnect will ensure that no worker or an employee is forced to work outside working hours without, Mr. Speaker, having an engagement or a structured engagement, Mr. Speaker. There are countries like France. In 2016, before even the onset of, Mr. Speaker, before the onset of COVID, of remote working, or right from working from home, Mr. Speaker, is they had passed this law of right to disconnect. There are many countries like Belgium, like Portugal. US is having a discussion. And I'm happy Kenya will become one of the first countries in Africa to enrich and right to disconnect. Mr. Speaker, Thursday is a public holiday, Mr. Speaker. Many young people have misinterpreted my bill to mean kwenda kupika sherehe. Say that from, Mr. Speaker, say that from Friday, and you know our senator, who is Senator Sifuna, is used to say during campaigns, and this is on a lighter touch, that he is the chairman of sherehe, kupiga sherehe when he was campaigning, Mr. Speaker. And maybe on a lighter note, that is why the reason Kenyans did not give them the votes, because, Mr. Speaker, they imagine wataenda kupiga sherehe kila siku. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, that was on a lighter touch, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, many young people, when they saw this bill, they thought ni kupiga sherehe because from Friday to Monday, your employer is not supposed to call you. And I saw many of the funny things at the social media about this bill, Mr. Speaker. But we are saying critical care services, like doctors who are on call, nurses, and many others, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is very important, Mr. Speaker, to be aware of such. And I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to agree that this bill will have a structure. I've seen Federation of Kenya Employers. They have been fighting my bill, Mr. Speaker. Central Organization of Trade Union, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Papa Atwali, we respect him so much. He's an elder in this country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore...
what's your intervention? What's your point of order, Senator Joe Newton?
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I raise pursuant to Standing Order number 41. That's about Quorum, Mr. Speaker. And I think I want to bring it to your attention that I do not think that we have enough numbers in the House to raise a quorum, Mr. Speaker. So I beg that you look into that matter.
Yeah, kindly, clerk, confirm the quorum of the House. Sergeant at Arms, let's have the... For 10 minutes, ring the quorum bell. For 10 minutes. Sergeant at Arms.
Yes, hata mkulima ni mfanyikazi, hata utakana kupigia mtu ya kuchunga ng'ombe. Yes. Yeah. Joe. Yeah. Kama ina